And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. If he's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous water. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door,
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.
I keep forgetting when I'm in love anymore. I keep forgetting.
All right. Here we go. Another night, Blue Collar Intellectual podcast. Tonight, my guest is going to be Asia Smith. She'll be on here in a little while. We had a mix-up in regards to the time difference, but that's all good. You know, that type of stuff happens. But so got the new merchandise in. Blue Collar Intellectual bomber jackets, hoodies. Both have the jackets in white and in black, both with the Blue Collar Intellectual logo. I also have the unapologetically black line out. I have the neon green, all smoke black and American line. The all smoke lines look absolutely spectacular. They came out very nice. I have the unapologetically black, red and purple up and down, upside down logo, contrary in design. Got a few different things out there. Also got face masks that came out as well, and shoes. And it's I'm not gonna lie, Coach Felicia got me on design and stuff. It's fun. However, all that being said, with everything going on this week, I'm not necessarily going to lay into the news. Everyone's all in their feels on the conservative side about the news presently, and the high likelihood that Donald Trump will not be POTUS on January 20th. I'm sorry. I don't care what you've heard in regard to the challenges, the legal challenges, and everything of that sort. It doesn't seem like he's going to win. Okay, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to tell you happy thoughts about it because that's not my job. That's not what I do. We're going to have another episode focusing on solutions over politics and principles over party. Okay. For instance, I'll explain it real quick. When we have discussions, we need to focus on what we actually see as a solution to whatever problem we're being presented with, especially as conservatives, because we have a problem with messaging. Horrible, dismal, absolutely disgusting messaging that is completely contrarian to the points we are trying to convey. Our messaging sucks, and we need to fix that. So when we focus on solutions, when you speak to somebody, you introduce yourself, you tell them where you stand on things. This is what we believe. You let the individual tell you their problems, then you provide the solutions that fit in line with your principles. You explain the principles and the ideas. And then after you've explained that and you've provided those solutions, then you can, if they like the solutions that you've provided, you ask for their vote. After asking for their vote, because not everybody that votes for you is going to want to immediately rock the R and go running down the street screaming from the top of their lungs that they're a Republican. It's just the fact of life. We have a lot of stuff to overcome. We have a lot of bad choices that we've made in the past that we have to overcome. And that's fine. We can still do this. We can still move forward. So after you've asked for their vote, if they agree to give you their vote, then you can ask them to join the party. But that should not be a deal breaker, and you shouldn't judge them for not wanting to join the party. Just like Donald Trump had plenty of Democrats that voted for him this time, he also had plenty of people. He had independents that voted for him. So we need to change the metrics and the dynamics and how we speak to people. Now, going into this next round, I'm prepping to launch the campaign website, which I've been working on. I gotta tell you, I'm not a web designer. It's a pain. But one thing I have noticed since doing this, dealing with some employees right now. One thing I have noticed since doing this web design, trying to get my website going and everything, is as soon as I bought my web domain, which it will be thebluecollarintellectual.com. Once I bought my web domain, I immediately got a flood of phone calls and immediately got a flood of phone calls and emails from India. And seemingly phone calls from phone banks that are rerouted through many different states all throughout the U.S. Asking to be my web designer. One thing I did notice is I haven't got a single phone call from here in the United States from an actual United States firm for web design. And to me, that's a problem. That's something we should correct. Because that seems to me to be an industry that we're not even competing in. And the pitch is always that their prices are 50% less, which I'm expecting American prices for web design to drop significantly now that we've gone through the pandemic and everybody's working from home. When you don't have to pay for rent on a building, web design costs go down when your overhead costs go down as well. But as we move forward, we need to figure out how to bring some of these industries back here to the United States. So far, I've enjoyed having a podcast and being able to have these discussions with people because I think they're good, healthy discussions. I've been able to have them in front of people, in front of you guys, and I think that's highly productive, considering everything that we've been going through recently. And I'll be putting out more content once I drop the website, both for the Blue Collar Intellectual podcast website. We'll be getting more content out there. I'll allow other conservative thought leaders within this space, some of the people that I've even had on the interview, can write and submit articles and stuff for the website. Oh, I'm sorry. I am absolutely exhausted. I'm sure you've all seen on the news, we got a major snowstorm up here in the Northeast, in New Hampshire. A couple people even died. I saw quite a few trucks jackknifed on the side of the road. The same pickup that passed me going like 70 miles an hour this morning at 4 a.m. on the highway ended up in a ditch. So karma for you. However, that sucks. It was a nice truck. I'm just going to keep this right here. So I am running on empty. I'm doing getting up in time to clear off my car and driving to work. And unfortunately, when you work one of those jobs, you have one of those types of jobs where no matter what, you still got to go into work. You do what you got to do. Okay? And I'm lucky to be in that kind of position. So, shout out to everybody that made it through the pandemic, that may not have a job or doesn't know what's going to happen in the near future as far as employment goes. So I am actually pretty motivated looking forward, and I'm actually pretty positive considering everything going on right now. Specifically, we have Sonny Johnson, who's working on a PAC. Regardless of whether I disagree with her on things, Kimberly Klasik's got her PAC, and I'm not gonna lie and say I don't have issues with it, but there's George Farrell's making moves with his PAC, moving forward. We got candidates getting ready to run. We got some House members and some senators that we need to primary out, that we need to get rid of. Because the way some of our elected officials acted this year is just not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. And we definitely need to deal with those people. Because this is not something that we can continue to have happen, where the people, the voters, decide that we want the party to go in one direction, and yet the party decides that it does not want to go in that direction and it'd rather do something else. You are either following the will of the voters or you are not. It's that simple. It should take no more effort than exactly that. Okay. This should not be something that's even thought about. Now, one thing that has happened in the news, I know some of you got mixed feelings about it. I'm actually very, very excited that the Lincoln Project, all the people in the Lincoln Project are leaving the party, and they're deciding to go Democrat. Personally, I already considered them Democrats, a bunch of rejects they were, and they had largely a nil effect on the outcome of the election. Everyone, I mean, let's be realistic. Nobody on the left likes these people. And no one trusts them. They're career politicians. They're the exact ones that led us to where we are right now, and they are very much the same ilk that refuses to abide by what the voters voted them into office for. And that being largely counterproductive, I see no reason at this point that we should pretend that these people are acceptable in any way. So there's that. In regard to them leaving the party, I think this is good. We're getting rid of some debt. I'm sorry. Another business message. Give me just a minute. Them leaving the party, I think, is getting rid of dead weight, and I think this is very productive for us. So I'm not mad at it. Not by any means. To be honest, I think them leaving the party actually makes it leaves less resistance within the party for some new blood to come in. Now there are plenty of people in power positions within the party that we still need to get rid of. There are plenty of people that definitely need to go. They need to go. They're useless. They're counterproductive. They want to take the party back to the direction that it was in before, and that is not productive for any of us. So I think we can successfully get rid of those people. I see no reason that we should keep them around for any reason. I see no reason that we should keep them around. So I know normally I discuss specifically the black community, but I will wait for Asia to hop on, for Asia Smith to hop on which she is in my old stomping grounds in out in Temecula, Southern California wine country. Absolutely love Temecula. It's a shame that it happens to reside within California. If California would stop being insane, I would have no problem moving back there. It's a beautiful area, especially the Old Town area. So, it's got a lot of work. Yeah, there's still plenty of areas within that. Oh, that's weird. But there's still plenty of areas out there where you might be able to escape the tyranny of the state governor. Newsom. I honestly have nothing positive to say about the guy. I despise people that, as politicians, as people who are supposed to represent their constituency, that act the complete opposite of the way that they should be governing. I hate the rules for you, not for rules for thee, not for me mentality. I think that is completely contradictory, and we've seen this on the Republican side recently as well. And this is something Jeff Charles had just recently mentioned in a tweet. He asked if there was a Republican senator or House member that you would like to primary and get out of there, who would it be? I'm not going to dig that far into it. I don't have normal, I should say, Republican challengers in my district as of yet. I will be running against a liberal, or I should say a leftist, because he's not really liberal. That would be a misnomer. I'll be running against a leftist, Chris Pappas, in this next election. It is what it is. He seems like a nice guy. I disagree with him on just about everything political. He votes as far left as it gets. I mean, to be honest, I have nothing against him personally. Seems like a nice enough, kind of vanilla for my taste, but he seems like a guy you could grab a beer with. So I'm going to get a little bit into, while I'm sitting here waiting for Asia and sipping my coffee, I'm going to get into my platform a little. I am 100% pro Second Amendment. And I mean, like, really pro Second Amendment. Like, I want to be able to have the saw I carried when I was at active duty. I want a minigun. Because I can. Not because I'm going to do anything stupid with it. I mean, other than shoot shit on private property. Have some fun with it at the range, but because I should be able to have one. And to be honest, I think we could fix a lot of the arguments with the gun argument if we did what Maj Toure is doing right now. Maj Toure with Black Guns Matter. He's going around the country and he's evangelizing 2A education, passing out the knowledge, spreading the awareness, teaching people how to properly use a firearm, getting rid of some of the old tropes and misconceptions about them. And it's made a big impact. And to be honest, he was on Aquarian Anarchy last night. Shout out to Chad Marcus and the guys. He made a good solid point. The pandemic made a lot of conservative points for us that coming into this next round, we honestly should not have to. We shouldn't have to readjust and have to do much to fix this. So, hopefully we'll be ready this time. Now, in regard to pro-life, like I said in my last video, I am pro-life. I'm a Christian man. I do think that had we stuck to the safe, legal, and rare for the 1%, the less than 1% of cases, for in the situation of rape, incest, or to save the life of the mother, I think we would have been in a far better situation right now. However, I mean, we always, the slippery slope argument exists because it always happens. Over time, once you open the floodgates, eventually it just goes. Once there's a crack in the dam, eventually the dam collapses. So it is what it is. Now, I think if we're going to go pro-life, we have to fix the fastest thing to fix, because we've seen how inactive our Congress is. We've seen how hard it is to get legislation passed, and we've held the House, the Senate, and the presidency multiple times since Roe v. Wade was passed, and still could not overturn abortion or make it even remotely reasonable. We couldn't even get normal shit like hallways wide enough you can fit two gurneys down side by side, doctor admitting privileges, normal hospital standards that are required for every medical care facility in the country. We couldn't even debunk some of the stupid shit. Okay, so there's plenty of blame to go around on the pro-life side, on the right too, but just due to the inaction of the average Republican politician, and that's because the left puts a lot of money into it, put a ton of money into defending it. I mean, they get federal funds and then they donate to candidates so that they can get more federal funds and get protection from being shut down or from having those funds stripped away, which, be honest, I don't think we should shut down Planned Parenthood as much as just defund them. I shouldn't have to fund you. But the big deal is, if we're going to go pro-life, we need to change the economic and education opportunity factors that drive making these choices. People who have bad education, they have a lack of opportunity. That lack of opportunity, or that bad education, leads to bad choices. That bad choices and lack of opportunity leads to more lack of opportunity and bad choices. And that is how you get women in a position where they are with the wrong man, an irresponsible man. They won't take care of his kids, or you end up with a situation where the woman is considering giving up her baby for the economic stability that comes with being single and established prior to having a child. And if we fix adoption, then that would also cut down on abortion. You can't just go pro-life and ban abortion, but then ignore all the other stuff surrounding it that drives women to make that decision and doesn't give them other options. Okay, we've gotten better. We started to affect the culture by engaging in we making movies and documentaries and exposing things and changing the mode of conversation, because just slapping people in the face with the Bible is not a sufficient argument. It's just not, because if the person doesn't believe in what you're laying out for them, you've already lost the argument before you even begin. Now, as far as economic, I think we need another tax cut. I think it would have been great if we had the Trump tax cut 2.0 like we were supposed to get. And I think the implementation of the Platinum Plan is something that I'll be running on as well. I thought it was a good plan. Needs more details. It needs to be worked out better. And it needs to be implemented. It needs an actual implementation strategy. And I think it should be, as far as the loans and economic opportunities, it needs to be something that you can apply for federally, so that those funds cannot be polluted and manipulated at the state and local level. Because if you have to filter it through 10 layers of corruption along the way, you're going to have a lot of cronies along the way that are going to pass money to their corporate buddies, and corporate buddies who are going to support cronies who are going to pass money to them. And it's part of things that many communities have been explaining and complaining about for decades. But conservatives, we haven't listened. Now we hear them loud and clear because it finally happened to us. It finally happened on such a large scale that it changed the outcome of an election. However, I'm not going to get into that, because that's not what I'm here for. Now, I don't believe in going over. I want to finish pulling out of Afghanistan and Iraq. I have zero faith that this next administration is going to do that. If it's not, it's highly likely to not be Trump. If it was Trump, that's great, because then he can continue to pull troops out. If it wasn't Trump, then it's Biden, and he is much more sympathetic to the old war dog types, the blue dog Democrats that are completely okay with going to war as long as it fits their goals. And I'm not okay with that. I don't want a random war for no particular reason. I don't want to see my brothers go back over and get shot at for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Especially something that doesn't actually benefit the United States. There's no real proof to it, to it benefiting us. Now, as God, there's a lot going on. So, as things are starting to pan out on the left, pretty predictable, which I thought, right now, I think what happens on the left is going to depend on what happens in Georgia. Because I see it as, if we hold the Senate in Georgia, which I think should be our main focus right now, everyone stop talking about Trump and start talking about Georgia and how we're going to save it. Holding the line in Georgia should be our main focus, because the way politics is played, neither side really wants to accomplish everything that they say they do. Biden is a creature of the swamp. Longevity provides that he does not actually solve. He solves just enough to get reelected, but not enough to where he's not useful anymore. He does not. I don't think he will go as far left as the leftists want him to. And I think us holding the Senate would stop them from taking that march. We would be his scapegoat, in other words. He'll be happy to not have to sign crazy leftist stuff, and regardless of the rhetoric, that he'll blame all Republicans and blah, blah, blah. The fact is, he didn't want to sign it in the first place, and will be the scapegoat. The Senate, us holding the Senate, would be the scapegoat for them not getting their agenda. And then they still have a rally cry for 2024. However, If we don't hold the Senate and the left takes it, the leftists, because Ossoff and Warnock are leftists, they are far, far Marxist progressives. They will get in the Senate, and then all of a sudden Biden has both the House and the Senate, and the leftists now have more power in both, which means the deciding votes will most likely be will trend along moderate lines, but the energy of the party will be far left. And if we lose the seats in Georgia and the left takes them, that pressure to push that far left agenda is going to be exponentially greater for Biden. And he will have to let more through, and he will have to give them more seats of power. And if he doesn't, he'll be out in 2024. And I think we should stop talking about impeachment of Biden, for the simple fact that Kamala is worse. She actually is a leftist. She's an ideologue. She is also a creature of swamp, which makes her even more dangerous. A person who is a idealistic extremist or tends along the idealistic extremes, however, is intelligent enough to be aware of what room they happen to be standing in and when they happen to be in that room, and what to say and who to say it to, is something that's really, really dangerous. And while we all think that she's a joke right now, trust me, she is not a joke. We said the same thing about Stacey Abrams, and look at her. Look what she accomplished. While we were celebrating, she managed to pretty much flip entire states, because as Mark Elias, Andrew Wilcott mentioned this earlier, as Mark Elias did, what they managed to do is get all mail-in balloting, a universal mail-in ballot system approved, and then that given percentage of votes that are cast down every single year due to people not filling out their ballot properly, not turning it in on time, bad signatures, or whatever, the human error portion of it. They managed to legalize a bad ballot. And I don't say fraudulent, because if you're a legally registered voter and you fill out the ballot and you screw up, you didn't commit fraud by making a mistake, but it would normally be thrown out because it's a bad ballot, because you couldn't follow directions, which is fine with me. I remember in school, in like middle school, if you didn't sign your name at the top of a test, you failed the test. It's pretty plain simple. I don't see why we should change it for people in their friggin' 20s and 30s and 40s, 50s and 60s. It just doesn't make any sense to me. However, and that was good strategy. One of the things that leads to success in the future is respecting your enemy and what they can accomplish, or having a healthy respect for your enemy leads you to be able to predict what they'll do in the future and what their next move is. And I do have a healthy respect for my enemy, because that allows me to see why they think the way they think, and how they will move forward, and what we need to do to be able to combat that. As I've said, as Coach Felicia has said, as Sonny Johnson said, and many others, our messaging is apathetic, and it needs work. One of the most valuable things that all the movements had this year, and we'll get into this with Aisha Smith, over the past 4 years, is energy. Blexit had tons of energy. It was completely inauthentic. It was stolen from another woman. I'm not going to go deeper into that. You can find information about that elsewhere. However, how everything trended out, there's a lot of energy in the MAGA movement. Now, I will admit, I have disdain for people that tell me I don't know what was going on within the MAGA movement. I'm very, very aware of uh, what was happening inside the movement. So, um, mostly it's because when I tell you that the dynamics didn't work, and I tell you that I know why, and that I'm getting this from people in the administration, and you tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, I tell you you're an idiot. Okay? It's that simple. You don't tell your heart surgeon that he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Especially during a triple bypass. You're not a fucking heart surgeon. Now, oh shit, I got gray hairs in my beard. You can see them on camera. That means you're really getting old. Damn, that sucks. That's depressing. But like I was saying, with this pivot that's coming next, with us moving into this, making these next moves, and I can't wait. Asia should be hopping on any minute. In a minute, I'm gonna pan out, let the music come back on, refill my coffee, and then I'll be right back. But like I said, I'm pro 2A. I'm pro life. We need to repair the economy. I want to bring back the manufacturing jobs. I do want to implement the Platinum Plan because I saw a lot of potential there. And I want to keep the outreach to Black communities. Our language has to change. And I will be doing an unapologetically Black series where I will talk Black history, Black Republican history, because we know there are many of us out there that know a lot about Republican history, but not many people in the Republican movement know a whole lot about Black Republican history. And when they do, they know just the highlights. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of Black Republican highlights and a lot of really positive things that were going on. There's also a lot of major mistakes that the party made. We're not immune to our own failures. And the reason I will focus on those failures is not to beat you over the head with them and make you feel guilty. I don't dabble in the whole white guilt thing. It will solely be to tell you how we can take these failures, learn from them, and move forward. The moving forward aspect, because in order to solve a problem, you have to admit that there is a problem. This is one of our major failing points. Okay? When a person comes to you and they tell you they have a problem, you do not look them in the face and go, no, you don't. No, you don't. You listen to their problem. Okay? Many of the things that, and this is something Michael Singleton had mentioned, many of the things that rural America complains about, inner city America complains about as well. The impoverished in rural America has the same complaints as the impoverished in the inner cities. Why? You don't vote and they don't care about you. It's that simple. People who only care about politicians that only care about votes don't care about people that don't vote. The impoverished people in this country largely don't vote. I mean, you already feel economically disenfranchised. It's not a far stretch for you to feel politically disenfranchised as well. As a matter of fact, it seems completely reasonable to me that you would feel disenfranchised given your economic state, especially with rising levels of drug use and things of that nature. disenfranchised as well. So, that nature. Just a minute. As well. Okay. But you know it is what it is. But we can solve these problems, and the answer for both of you is the same. Listen, for rural America, the Donald Trump won your votes by listening to you and hearing what you had to say. The one thing he did not do is when you told him what you think your issue is, he didn't walk up to you and tell you know you're wrong. But for some reason, when minorities in inner cities make that same plea, we tell them they're wrong. What we should be doing is listening. Okay? Now, this is... Sure, Michael Singleton was completely right. By listening and representing the whole of America, and there's a way to inspire people to their better angels. You have to make the intellectual argument and the emotional argument combined. If you cannot inspire people to their better angels, we'll lose. We'll lose. Plain and simple. All right. Asia just hopped on. So, I've ranted for enough, and our guest is here. I've ranted for enough today. I will bring Asia on right now.
How are you?
How you doing today, Queen?
Busy. Busy,
So-
busy. But it's productive busy. Sorry, my hair. I'm having a bad hair day. It didn't do nothing.
Hey, that's fine. I have not cut my hair in a couple weeks, and I got like salt and pepper gray hair all over the place.
That's okay. I haven't got my hair done in 3 months because I live in California. We can't do anything.
That's sad. The last time I got a haircut, like actually got a haircut, was I think right before at the Solutionary Summit.
Wow.
I think that was in August. So I don't do professional haircuts on a regular basis anymore. I don't have time for it, and damn near every barber's going out of business unless you're like Supercuts or some shit. So.
And here in California, it's so sad. I mean, Nancy Pelosi can go get her hair done, but we can't even go get our nails and feet done or hair done or get your eyebrows trimmed.
It's sad. And I was just saying at the beginning when I first turned on today, I loved California. I absolutely love California. It was beautiful.
It still is.
I mean, especially Temecula.
Oh, yes. It's about 20 minutes, 30 minutes away from me because I'm in Moreno Valley.
Oh,
so I
okay.
go down. Yeah, so I go down there a lot because that's where one of my Republican club meetings, and I go down there. I have friends down there, and it is tempting. Should I move down there one day? But you know, the fights here in my area. But I do love Temecula and Murrieta. It's still gorgeous. It is the wine country, everything.
I lived just down the road from Old Town, Temecula, and I absolutely loved it. Like, I used to go, my favorite winery is out there, and my wife's favorite wine is out there.
Yes.
I like South Coast Winery is out there.
Oh, yes. And it's nice.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. They got my wine. I need to order another case of it because they don't sell it out here.
Now, what state are you in?
I'm in New Hampshire. I had to move back home after they started doing like the red flag laws and all that, and then they started threatening mandatory vaccines and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we started to look into the mandatory vaccines and what was going to happen, my wife, who at the time was more liberal, more anti-vaxxer, liberal. and she got that from her mom, and I can't blame it. I can't blame her for it. But then they passed the whole vaccine thing, and I'm like, both of us being in the military, we don't get a choice. We get vaccinated. We get told. So I didn't see the big deal.
I'm so glad I got out because I said I'm not taking that COVID.
Mm.
Oh no,
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 I'm not taking it. I'm
I'm
not in
not
the I'm
taking it.
not in the risk group.
Me either. And you know, did you see the video where the doctor or the head person got that fake shot?
Yeah,
I
I
was
saw
like,
that.
are you serious? They
I'm
just
like,
stuck it in
man,
there.
that's a bold-faced lie. A bold-faced lie. I'm like, you know what? I knew it was going to be shady as soon as they started marching out black women to get the shot to
Yeah,
convince. Oh, I'm like, they're like, oh, this is horrible. We're never going to get past the virus because people don't trust the vaccine. I'm like, well, the first thing you did was say it was going to kill black people, and it was like the Tuskegee experiments because
yep.
Donald Trump, it happened under Trump, and I'm like, would you think he cooked it up in his basement like a freaking meth lab down there? I'm like, come on. I'm like, he wasn't doing a high school chemistry experiment. All he did was roll back regulations because there's that given amount of time that once you hit a level of progress and you hit a certain trial period, you got to be in that trial for like over a year of
Yes.
human testing and shit just to be able to move on. Where instead he rolled back that and he goes, as soon as you show promise over a certain level, go ahead and move on. And all the companies, what they did was they're like, okay, cool, we're gonna quadruple or friggin' the normal sample size I think is normally around 10,000 people. I think
Mm-hmm.
Pfizer quadrupled theirs, and was it Moderna quintupled theirs.
Right.
So they did like 50,000 people in the damn trial. So we had well over 100,000 people in their trial period. I'm like, in each phase of the trial period. So I'm like, that's fantastic. You don't see that with any vaccine. So I'm like, so
Mm-mm.
all I did was roll back some freaking regulations, and it's like if you take off the speed limit while I'm on the highway, and I'm not a psycho trying to do donuts in the middle of the highway, all I'm going to do is get to where I'm going faster.
Correct. And my
So
question,
I don't know what the left thought they were doing, just undermining all trust in this.
I grew up with two nurses. My grandmother who passed away last year, she was a psych nurse, and then my mother, she's a retired nurse. My mom said, I'm not taking it. She said, there's no way you can come up with the vaccine that quick. And my question is, how much of it is a placebo?
Yeah, my mom is she's a retired Air Force medic,
Okay.
and she said same thing. She is actually in the risk category. She's got all sorts of comorbidities and stuff
My
getting
mom
up
too.
in age, and she's like, hell no.
Nope.
She's
I'm
like,
not
hell
taking it.
no.
I'm
She's
not
like,
taking
and
it.
I'm not taking it. She said she's not taking it because of Bill Gates.
Well,
I'm
that's a good
well,
point, but my question is, why are you my question, but at the same time, I was reading an article, I think it was Stars and Stripes, and they said, "Oh, we're going to give this to all the minority veterans first." And I'm like, "Okay, we got a
yeah.
Tuskegee experiment going on here."
Exactly. I'm like,
I'm
all
like,
right. And
"No,
one, you got the media over here going, oh, this is going to be just like the Tuskegee experiments. They're trying to wipe us out. And then you have the military going, yeah, let's give it to all the black guys first. So I'm like,
nope."
what?
I
How
said,
how is this a good idea?
I am so glad I got out. I even asked my friends that are still in, and they said, "Man, that them retirement paperworks are looking pretty good right now."
Oh man,
They
I am
said,
one of those guys. I couldn't get the I could only get the shot for the flu vaccine and all the different vaccines and shit. They lost my whole shot record like 9 times.
Oh, mine went to
I was
Guam.
out my entire to Guam.
Yeah, when
Wow.
I graduated from basic and tech school and I was in processing and they were like, "Oh, we can't find your medical records." And they found them 2 months later and it went to Guam.
Jeez.
And I'm
I got
like,
my whole shot record all over again so many times. I'm like, man, I got the best blood on the planet. Like I might be able to cure cancer if I give this to somebody. They dose me up with everything.
I've
The
had
only thing I
anthrax.
couldn't get was what was it? Penicillin or prednisone or
I
something.
couldn't I
Something with
couldn't
a
do the penicillin either. And so
Mhm.
they were like, "Oh, you need your pen." I said, "Nope, mm-mm." So they had to give
I
me a
couldn't
Ritalin.
get I couldn't get the hydroxychloroquine.
Oh
I'm
wow.
like one of the less than 1% that are allergic to it.
Wow.
Yeah, but
I've had
I was like, I got a like a 60% chance or something of or 60% chance of dying from malaria if I catch malaria. But then I got like 100% chance of dying of internal bleeding if I get the damn drug. I'm just gonna I'll take my chances with malaria.
when I deployed, they were giving us anthrax shots, and that's the worst thing. The second series I got, my arm developed this big knot, big as an egg. And I
Yeah,
said, "Is this normal?" And they all kind of looked at me at the clinic. They said, "We never seen that before."
yep.
I said, "Well, it's bulging out. My commander sent me is bulging out my arm." And they were like, "Well, just take some Motrin and see how you do.
Yeah. Change your socks, drink some water.
Drink some more water and take some Motrin and come back in a week." It finally went down, but it was like, "Okay, would you just give me?"
Yep. Speaking of military health care, while everybody wants socialized health care, while we're on the topic,
Oh,
I
I
think it's hilarious. I always tell them, I'm like, you want socialized health care? Don't look at active duty health care because that's
no.
the positive side of it that
Correct.
everybody hears. That's what you think is like the best side of it because
Mm-mm.
in but then I tell them, I go, look at the VA and you look at the family side of active duty healthcare, and then you combine all three together. I'm like,
It's
so active
horrible.
duty healthcare, here's some painkillers, some Motrin, drink some water, get your ass back to work. Everything's designed just to get you back to work. As
Yep.
soon as you cannot readily return back to work, they put you on a limited duty and then or on a light duty and then they pressure you to go back to work even though you're hurt. When you're on a limited duty, they haze the shit out of you until you go back to work and ignore the issue until it's all over. Or if you go on an extended limited duty, then they're like, all right, so let's do this calculation. How much time do they have left?
Yep.
How much does it cost to
Yep.
fix the problem?
Are they
Can we fix the
replaceable?
problem? Yeah.
We're
If
property.
you're in a
We are
yeah, if
not
you're in
human
like
beings.
EOD or something like that, they're like, give them a new leg, give them a new spine, get them a lung. We don't get EOD techs. No one wants to get blown up. You're a tanker. No one signs up to be a tanker anymore.
Nope.
So, I mean, that's damn near dead MOS. I saw a guy get told he had multiple NJPs and was going to get kicked out. And they were like, yeah, we can't kick you out. There's nobody to replace you. Where
Exactly.
like all the upper echelon guys have retired. There's nobody new signing up for it. And then they did that under Obama when they started to shrink all the military forces. You had
Sequestration.
yeah, they let
I was in
everybody
it.
with a year. Was it a year before their EAS date start to EAS early? I'm like, you got to be shitting me. You got to be shitting me. I had guys that came in after me that are getting out before me. I'm like, this is bullshit.
And then they gave you a bonus just to get out, like get out.
Yeah. Yeah, those guys, I bet you knees and back and everything hurt. And I bet you they're all like,
Yep.
I shouldn't have taken the bonus. I should have
Yep.
stayed.
You should have stayed in. But but talking about active duty, I remember my first trip going for annual training. I went to Hickam. And the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that people said, don't go to Tripler Hospital. It's like that big pink hospital in Hickam. And I said, what's going? They said, if you're sick or anything, do not go there. And I said, why? They said, well, it's a military hospital. And they said, a baby almost died because instead of giving the baby oxygen, they gave the baby carbon monoxide.
What the
And I
hell?
said, what? They said, sadly, a baby got really sick. It was from a military family. They rushed their baby to the hospital at Tripler, and this was years ago. And so instead of giving the baby oxygen, they screwed up and gave the baby carbon monoxide. I said, yeah,
Wow.
I won't be getting sick on this trip. And then another girl who I met, she was working in the same unit. She said, yeah, I went in there for a cold and was stuck in there for a whole entire month for something totally different diagnosed. And they figured it out. They misdiagnosed me.
Wow.
So I said, okay.
I I was at let's see, we did our MOS school at Fort Leonard Wood in
Okay.
Missouri. And I gotta say, that is the most like Marines rag on 29 Palms. I would rather be at 29 Palms than at Fort Leonard Wood.
We ragged on
I would
29 Palms.
Yeah, they always say, what was it? There Joshua trees exist at the gates of heaven and the gates of hell, and 29 Palms sure as hell ain't the gates of heaven.
Correct. I've been out there.
Yeah, it's miserable. But
Is
29 Fort Leonard Wood was just windy, bone chilling cold. Windy, bone chilling cold. I remember they had I think they had possibly the worst orthopedic surgery unit. I think everyone that got a knee surgery at Fort Leonard Wood never left Fort Leonard Wood. They all got separated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, they're like, you might need surgery. I'm like, I'll take a pass.
I'll
Take
stick
a
it out.
pass on that.
I mean, I had knee surgery and it was terrible. Like you said, hey, how am I going to be on profile? I had knee surgery like last week. I can't do nothing. I had to get my meniscus repaired because of running on concrete. And they said, oh, you still on profile? I just had surgery. I just had it. Oh, when do you get off
For
of
me,
profile?
it was my lungs.
Oh,
Like I
wow.
came back from Iraq after the burn pits and everything, and we tried to go on a company run, and I had zero lung capacity.
Mm.
When I went to the hospital, they were like, out of 5 liters of what you're supposed to have, you got about maybe a liter and a half. Like the
Oh,
fact
my
that you
God.
even walked up here into the office
Was a
without
miracle.
passing out was like insane. Yeah. And I'm like, well, what can I do? They're like, well, we give you some stuff, which now I find out that the medication that they had me on active duty was not the best medication. Apparently
Of
it
course.
works for like 3 out of 25 people or some shit. It's absolutely dismal. But now the stuff that the VA has me on is better, like
Okay.
drastically better. So, yeah, the VA is definitely getting better than it used to be. Unfortunately, the active duty side, not so much. But then
Correct.
again, we're not in an active war on the same level that we were at the beginning
Correct.
of Iraq and Afghanistan. So they can afford to kick us out rather than fix us to keep us in.
And
No
that's
one's
what they
getting
were doing.
stop loss.
My last 2 years. I mean, if you sneeze, they'll try to medically board you. It was just ridiculous. And I said, this is getting really insane. Just like a friend of mine, she just had a little issue right here. It was just like her muscle, whatever she pulled. And it came PT time. She said, well, I can't really do push-ups. Can I get a waiver? Because I just sprained a muscle right here. My arm hurts. They literally medically board her. So she had to go all the way to Texas and go to the board. And she's folding her arms. She's waiting and she's going like this. And they said, oh, do you have that, Sergeant? She was like, no, I'm here to show you my eval. They said, what's your eval? She said, they say I can't do push-ups. And they said, well, we saw you bending your arms and doing all of this. She said, that's what I was trying to tell the back at home, at March. And any little thing. And so she pumped out 20,
Hmm.
25 push-ups. She said, all I had was just a sprain right here. I just couldn't do it
Yeah.
that day. And any little thing, I mean, I could come and scratch my ear. Oh, you have something wrong with your ear. You can't hear. It was like, no,
Yeah.
it's nothing wrong with me. It's just maybe today is not my day.
If they had me on the medicine that because the doctor told me, he goes, you can't run. One of the things you can do is swim. So like I worked and I swam, and I eventually got to the point where I'm like, if you guys, is there a better medication? Or now that I know there was a better medication, they just didn't use it at the time, like the military didn't use it at the time. Had I used what I'm on now back then, I'd still
Hmm.
be active duty if I didn't get kicked out for being belligerent, which I'm very belligerent. So
I got kind of tired. I mean, I can still go back in. I'll probably go National Guard because they're a lot more happier than federal. And we have a great National Guard unit here. They have a great program. And, I've been talking to some of the recruiters, just go do my weekend and be happy and see you later. See you next month. I did my 2 days. Peace. And and that's about it. But I can still go back in. I still kind of miss it. I really do. I miss and being proud of wearing my uniform and wearing my
yeah,
boots and putting on my hat. I mean, I look sharp in my uniform. Plus, I was a lot skinnier. But at the
yeah,
same time, I had fun and I had a good career. You had your ups and downs, but I entered right, 2002 after 9/11 because we had delayed entry because everybody was
yeah,
signing up. But every week I had to meet with my recruiter, teaching me all the customs and courtesies, prepping me for boot camp. And I tell the younger people, I said it was different than when I joined. I mean, half of you weren't even born. And they started
yeah,
laughing. I said, when were you born? Oh, 2001. I said, yeah, I already signed up. So and they were like,
yeah.
really? So I said it was much, much different where we were at war and money
Hmm.
was pouring in and everybody was joining and I look back and I don't regret it, but I really feel that for the past 20 years we focus so much on foreign instead of focusing too on what's going on now in the country.
Yeah. We
Domestic
ignored.
terrorism, domestic issues,
Yeah,
and what we're seeing with the voter fraud, we're seeing with the Sawwell Spygate and all this other gate, and the far left using that opportunity because they know we have a lot of neocons in the party.
yeah,
and we're so focused on military and foreign, and they came in and they just started taking over the local cities. They started taking more over the local school boards and taking over the state parties and even congressional. And I look
yeah.
back and I said, I don't regret, I don't say we were wrong, but we still weren't paying attention on what was going on here in the homeland. And that's why we are here today, because they said great opportunity, 20 years. Now we'll just swoop into the local government, the county, and the state governments and fully take over. Because I said, 20 years ago, California, we had issues, but we weren't as bad. I mean, we had Schwarzenegger.
I got
Well,
out to California in 2000, I want to say 2008, and
okay.
I was out there up until 2016 when we moved back home
Hmm.
because I was just like I couldn't take it anymore after being separated. I lived out there with my wife and my kids. I literally in between 2011 and 2018, I went from living in a garage with my
Mm,
wife and my son on base with a guy I served with because I just didn't get paid for like 2 months.
wow.
Like they screwed up my EAS date, and then like 4 months before I EAS, I just didn't get paid for like 2 months, and
Wow.
then after I got out, I never got my final paycheck for like another 2 months. So,
That's
uh,
that's that sounds
yeah,
about right.
we lost. I went through all my savings the first time I lost. I didn't get paid. everything I was saving up for when I got out, because I knew there might be a delay between when I got my last paycheck and when I get a job. Yeah, didn't expect that delay to come in the middle, like right towards the end of my enlistment, and then to have another delay between me getting out and my last paycheck. But then let's see, 7 years, 7 years, and I bought a house, multiple cars, got land up here, living life. When I was out in California, I'd spin my tires. Just spinning my tires. It was like no matter how much you work, you couldn't get anywhere.
You couldn't get anywhere. But I tell people I'm a California native, born and raised, born in Los Angeles, moved out here in 88, born and raised. It's changed. And it
Yeah.
has been tempting, should I go to another state and live a better life? Should I go here? But where do you go? And I have friends that moved to Arizona. Oh, it's so much better. It's more Republican. But I'm like, okay, you guys just turned blue.
Yeah.
Texas is on the shoestring and
Yep.
everywhere else. So where do you go?
Yeah.
Where do you go? Do I have to go to Wisconsin? I don't do well with snow, but
I keep
it's
saying New Hampshire is the bastion. New Hampshire is what conservatism would look like if we applied it equally.
but the population, you know, I don't know if you
Is
know John
smaller.
Cox. John Cox,
Yeah.
he ran for governor. So he's
Yeah.
from that area and he talked about it, but we said, how can you apply that where California's population is bigger than some countries? You know,
We
it
have a very similar form of government. New Hampshire and California are one of the few states where the people in the state can actually vote to overturn a law passed by the legislature or
correct.
recall a governor directly. Now, the sad part was when I was going to college out there, most college kids and professors did not know this, which is amazing because you have ballot initiatives walking around campus all the damn time of people trying to get laws overturned and propositions overturned and stuff. And there's always a recall of the governor. There's always some group that wants to recall the governor. It never works. You never. They figure out a way to discount the signatures every time. So I don't
That's
think
what
this
we're
recall
going on here.
system is going to work. Yeah,
That
I
well,
don't
the
think it's going to be successful. They figure
Well-
out how to get rid of signatures every time.
Well, we were successful when Gray Davis, and
Yeah.
but a lot of people, we had more conservatives. We had a lot more blue dog Democrats during that time, and they said we're going to get rid of you. And so this time around, it is harder because we do have a corrupt system. The Secretary of State, he's part of it. He may become the senator taking Kamala's spot. We don't know yet. And we do have a lot of issues. And I keep telling people, if you're so sick and tired of what's going on, we have to band together here as citizens and really start hitting on the ground. You can't complain on Facebook and Twitter all day, you know. And I'm even getting tired of Facebook. And now you're on Parler. I have an account on Parler, but I don't even use it for what?
I think I got 10 followers on freaking Parler. I don't.
For what?
It's so boring when you're only talking to people that think exactly like you.
It is. You can't challenge your mind. You can't debate. And people say, "Why aren't you on Parler?" And I'm like, "I'm going to be talking to the same people for what? We're just sound like some cackling hens." And it's just for what? I can't make fun of AOC, or I can't challenge Ilhan Omar. I can't challenge other people's way of thinking. And so, what's the use of doing that? It's like talking to a wall. I might as well just talk to myself.
Like if I went to Parler and I invested all my time in Parler, my whole thing is solutions over politics and principles over party. I can't go to Parler and talk like that because the MAGA Trump over everything. I'm like, I voted for Trump twice. I see who he is in reality. He's not a god. He's not Jesus. He's not walking on water. And he couldn't fight this fight by himself. And I see him for exactly what he is. Flaws and all. But when you say he has a flaw, the MAGA crowd goes, they're like, that's it, pitchforks and tiki torches, go after him.
You
I'm
know,
like, and the worst part is they're not racist. They just
no,
have no fucking idea of how to talk to people. It's
I
like
I have I have to disagree because I've experienced it, and it's
oh, I
like,
get it. I do get
yeah,
it too.
it's like, did you just say what I just think you just said? I had people say, "Well, go back to your country," and I'm like, "I was born here. Where do you want me to go back?"
Yeah. I'm
Oh
like,
no, you
I'm
do.
as American as it gets. 140 years of military service on both sides of the family. I'm like,
My family's
uh,
been here since the late 1700s, both sides. I mean, where do you
yeah,
want me to go? Where do you want me
yeah.
to go?
Like that. I mean, I was born in England. I could go to
Oh,
England.
how cool!
Air Force Base over there. My
Milton
parents were
Hall or
active at the
Lincoln
time.
East? Milton Hall or
Uh,
Lincoln East?
oh no, it RAFS Upper Hayford.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've been to
Now
England.
apparently it's an airport parking lot and a
I've
bunch
been to
of car
England.
dealerships.
Okay, I like England
But
actually. It's a beautiful history.
it is. It is very beautiful. I want to go back. We stopped over in was it Ireland on the way overseas, and I want to take the whole family to England. My dad used to tell me that I would want to go back eventually, and I kept telling him like it rains there all the time, and their
But it's
food is weird.
beautiful. Well, it
Yeah,
it's it
the food
is.
is weird,
It's
but
there's no seasoning, but I made it
no,
work. I made it
yeah,
work. It was cute. I actually took a course. I studied, I went to Cal Baptist in Riverside, and we did part of my course here and in England at Oxford. And so one of my classmates, he was an older veteran, and he said, I'm gonna let you know, they don't season food, their food is bland. We're like, oh Joe, we'll be fine. We get there, we're like, okay, and it was so
yeah,
cute. He brought a bottle of hot sauce with him and put it on. We were like, "Where'd you get that?" He's like, "I told you they don't season food." So we're like, "Yeah,
yeah,
putting hot sauce and more salt and pepper." But it was a great experience because I read about and I just loved the history. Especially when it came down to Beowulf, and you hear about
yeah,
the Canterbury Tales, and you're like, wow, I'm really here. And where Alice in Wonderland started
yeah.
in Thymes
Sir
River, and
Arthur Conan Doyle, and
yes,
I
I went to
love
C.S.
old
Lewis's house.
medieval
I was
history.
like, oh my God, I'm at C.S. Lewis's house. And I went
Yeah.
to Blenheim Palace, went to London, and it was just so amazing. I said, I think I could live here.
We came
Despite
back
the food.
stateside when I was around 2.5, I think, almost three.
Okay.
And I'm like, I want to go back there. I want to go visit places. I like odd food. My rule is I will try anything once as long as it is not like I won't eat bat guano. That's a feces. I don't know why that's a thing. But I would love to go to England, and even though I know the food is weird, there's a lot of shit that Irish people eat that I love. Like I know my favorite soccer team is not a US soccer team. It's Manchester United.
Okay.
It's Manchester United, and it's just I grew up watching them. I grew up watching them. Favorite freaking soccer team. And I love the violence of British football.
It is pretty brutal.
Yeah,
I
I
saw a
just love
little
I
bit.
love watching people go at each other in the rain like that. I'm like, damn, they get more brutal than our football players. Like they get
Yes.
to hit each other, and that wasn't elbowing that dude in the throat wasn't a red card. That's amazing. But
I you know
yeah,
I liked England because when we first got out there, we got out, Heathrow Airport. Oh my God, that was crazy. And then we're like, okay, where do we go? Where do we go? And somebody said, oh, you guys lost? And they were just so helpful. We said, yeah, we're lost. We're Americans. We don't know anything. Where are you going? We told them where we're going. Oh, you take this bus. Okay, we took that bus. Got out the bus. Okay, where do we go? Somebody said, oh, are you lost? I'm like, well, crap, these people are friendly. Oh, I said, they're
Yeah,
friendly. And he said, oh, we'll walk you up to the schoolhouse. I'm like, oh, wow.
I the only thing now back to the social media dynamics and everything. The only thing I see negative with the MAGA crowd is, well, the fact I don't see them, like, I define what we currently see as racist and dynamics is uh, passive ignorance versus active malice.
Okay.
And I see the majority of the MAGA movement in the passive ignorance area, where if you challenge what they've been told, they can very, very quickly go to active malice. And like, for instance, we get caught up in this whole colorblind mentality and this whole not being able to discuss race at all. Why are we even discussing it? Why is it even a thing? And I'm like, this is counterproductive. If you can't even mention it, then how are you ever going to outreach to people who don't look like you? If you're saying it doesn't exist, how can you outreach to people who don't look like you? Because it very clearly exists. We know you can see us. We're not fucking idiots. We know you're not blind and you're not colorblind. You don't friggin' drive through stop signs, obviously, because you're still standing here in front of me.
You know what I
So it's
tell him?
like, when you say you're colorblind, I say you're not getting it because you're taking one line out of a very long speech, out of the thousands of speeches that Dr. King gave, and you're making that a religion to the point where when it can't, your life experience can't fit in that tiny little box, you get militant about defending it.
You know what I tell him? I had this conversation a couple of times. I said, then stop using the black community as your talking point.
Yeah.
And they
Stop
looked
talking
at
about
me.
Chicago.
And they
Stop
looked at
talking
me. They
about
said, well,
Chicago and Baltimore.
I said, they said, well, what are you talking about? I said, stop using the black on black crime narrative. If you are colorblind, stop using black on black crime and no fathers in the home narrative.
Yep.
And I took this person, they were really shocked in what I said, but they listened. The problem with the movement, and I don't have a problem with the movement. I think it was an exciting time and everything, but the problem is that you had a lot of people that didn't know the party history. They'd never been in politics. They didn't even know. I'll use a prime example, and it got brought up again. The Negro National Anthem.
Yes.
And I had
Yes.
to really shut people down. And I was still running for Congress. And I
Yeah.
said, you don't even know the history of this anthem. I said before, and I'm talking to people who are
I ended up
older than me. And I
I ended up
told them,
arguing with my own dad about it. My own
I, I,
father, I
I,
argued with him about it.
I, I told them, I said, you before you even say the Black National Anthem, it's been around for years.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're Black, that's what you sang up in your household
Yeah.
as a pride and joy. I said, what's the difference between that versus what somebody else may sing and
It
somebody
was a
else may
church
sing?
hymn. It was a
It was a
church hymn.
poem. No, no, no. It was a
Yeah.
poem that was
I
written
know,
by
but
one
we
of the
sang it
brothers
in
in
church.
a church. I said it's a
Yeah.
Christian song. So
Yeah.
I made this big old post about it because I saw everybody just going ballistic on Facebook. I couldn't do big posts on Twitter, but I did a whole history of it, and I had people say, you know what? Thank you for teaching us. And these are people who've been Republicans that brag, oh, I've been a Republican before I was born. No, then apparently you don't know history. And that's the problem with these movements, these groups. They jump on the bandwagon instead of saying, we want to know more about the Republican Party. We want to know more about Booker T. Washington or anybody else that were, when it comes to, I always say it's Black history, Black American history. But I always notice that when you say Black American history or Black history, everybody gets in a frenzy. But I say, well, what's the difference between that history and, I'm very open minded. I want to learn about everybody else's history. Heck, I even have a friend who's told me about, people who are homosexual that made significant impact. And I'm like, well, tell me
Yeah.
about them too. So
Yeah.
every time you say Black history, everybody's heads explode. But I
Yeah.
always tell these same people, stop using our community as a narrative. If you don't
Yeah.
see color, if you don't see gender, then let's get rid of the Women's Federation.
Yeah.
If you don't see
Now,
gender, if you don't
yeah.
see gender, then let's get rid of the Republican Women's Federation. Let's get rid of Maggie's list. Let's get rid of Women for Trump if you don't see gender. So
Yeah.
it backfires to them when you start putting that logic back, and it makes them think. It makes some of them very angry. But of course, they take it out of context. No, you should not judge me by the color of my skin or my gender or whatever. But he never said, I'm not Black. I'm still a
Yeah.
Black man. We're still
That
Black.
is one of the worst talking points I've ever heard. That one is worse than the slaves
It's,
on a plantation one.
oh,
The
Lord.
fact that you stand and you choose Black outreach people. Now, that's a failure in and of itself that I'll get to. But the people who are supposed to be running your Black outreach stand up in front of other Black people and say, I'm not Black, I'm American. If you're not Black, why did they put you in front of my face? Why are you in my face? If you are supposed to be relating to me because we supposedly have common ground, and that is based on our common heritage and our common Blackness, and you tell me you're not Black, I'm wondering what skin disorder do you have that makes you look like me? Why are you in my face if you do not consider yourself a part of the community? Now, my thing is, I may live in New Hampshire, but I grew
Okay.
up in the community. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and
Okay.
Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
I've
And
been a
I'm
right
like,
pat.
I love Dayton. I really do. I miss the block parties. I miss the Black Cultural Festival. I miss the racetrack that I'm pretty sure just got torn down.
Oh, man.
My dad used to work at the auto factory at Finley Industries.
Okay.
Uh, I'm like, come on. If you don't love the culture, why are you on the stage to outreach to Black people? Because I don't hear most of the people who outreach to Black people, I don't hear anything positive about Black people. And
I
that
tell,
to me is a problem because I see it as you're working off of two contradictory ideologies. You're outreaching to Black people, which means you're supposed to respect them and think that they need to be with you, but at the same time you're saying you're not Black and you don't see any value in Black culture, and you're blaming hip hop, music, sports. You're blaming everything that we dominated. So it creates this this lapse of understanding, and then we have the Republican Party is making the same mistake that the Democrats have done multiple times,
yes.
and the Democrats don't do it as often, but the Republican Party continues to do it, which is choosing who they would like to be our leaders to stand
Be,
in front of us rather than
because
supporting the people we support.
because they use those people to spew the rhetoric by, I'm not going to mention this person's name, but they did a tweet and said that we were trained monkeys and that our culture was a joke. And I
Mhm.
said, I was so tempted to switch my party in the middle of election, but I said, my friend said, don't do it. I said, but you know what? You get people like myself, like you, like Jeff, and everybody else to really counter back because they're picking people that the
Mhm.
way they feel, and they're giving them a paycheck and go say dance for massa over here.
Yeah.
And it is. It goes back to I don't know if you ever read and ever studied, but I was introduced to it back in junior college, the Willie Lynch theory. And
Yes.
it and the making of a slave, and both sides do it. They pin us
Yeah.
against each other. House Negro, field Negro, light versus dark, separating the man and the female, demasculating the man, making the black woman more powerful, the matriarch and the patriarch in the household, and both sides do it. And I told my friend this, her and I had this long conversation the other day. I
Mhm.
said, before we can move forward, we have to crack that and we have to dismantle that. It is not
Mhm.
going to take overnight or whatever president, but we have to do it together and say enough is enough. So if we ever get challenged by those other social justice warriors that they're just collecting $2 million by calling us trained monkeys, we have to counteract that and say you're no better than the Democrats when they brought the Willie Lynch theory principles, and that's why we have to really
Yeah.
start educating and going out into the community. You know, my whole thing is I'm a business major. My whole thing is yes, we do have issues in our community. We're taught that. I'm 42 years old. I never been married, had any children. I really beat a lot of odds. I just try to excel. But one thing that my
You
passionate
do
is to
not
really
look
is to
42.
really is to really teach economic growth.
Yeah.
Black economic empowerment and growth. I listen to Killer Mike. I like
I
what he has
love
to say.
Killer Mike.
I like
I
Killer
love
Mike.
Killer Mike.
I like when he was on the Breakfast Club and he even said, I'm starting a black owned business. I'm like, man, this is what I'm talking about right here. And you get people like him to say, okay, we know he's not a Republican, but to invite people like him in the community and say how we're going to start expanding with real estate, how we're going to start expanding, starting our own businesses and taking control. And there's nothing racist about it because every other ethnicity, racial group does it. So when we
Yeah.
do it, why is it considered wrong? And that's where we
Yeah.
do have to band together with people like him and others and saying, no, we're going to go back and create our own Black Wall Streets. And we're going to have to
Yeah.
go back and create our own Rosewoods. And we can do it, but we have to counteract that Willie Lynch theory. And we have to dismantle it on both sides of the parties and start saying and teaching our young Black men and women we can no longer say, well, she's better because, or she thinks she's better because she's light skinned, or, oh, I'm not going to talk to her because no, 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 no. We need to stop that. We need to also stop, you know, I am very passionate when it comes to women empowerment. I'm not one of those crazy liberal women, but I love to see women excel, but I also want to see my Black men excel. I want to help them
I
so
want
much.
to I want to have you on to talk about female empowerment because my theory is all movements go in phases. All right. So
Mhm.
my thing on feminism is you have first wave feminism, we want equal rights. Second wave feminism was female empowerment, independence, and acceptance. Third wave feminism was the beginning of the destruction. It was the
Yes,
anti-man, the militant feminism.
yes.
And then
I
you
hate
had
men. I hate
the
men.
fourth, exactly. And then you had fourth wave feminism, which is woman is a social construct. We are all women. We are all men. We can all do what men can do, and men can all do what women can do. There is no such thing as woman or man. That is the what I call the jumping off the cliff. Like
Yes.
you got the stop sign that you should have seen at third wave, and then you were like, nope, hit the gas.
Hit the gas. Gonna
And
run that. Run it.
and I see that happening with every single movement. There's
Yes.
that whole idea. Every movement becomes a cause, or was it every cause becomes a movement becomes a business, and then a business turns into a racket.
Yes.
And I'm like, I see that happen with every single movement. And right now we're at where activism, racial activism, all activism is a racket.
Yes, it is.
Where we've gotten to the point where we actually end up reducing rights for ourselves, trying
Correct.
to create rights for ourselves.
Correct. And
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 what I
and
keep
I
saying is, if you really think that white people have all this power, if you really think that white people are out to get us, and that there's white supremacy everywhere, and everywhere you look, you're looking through the prism of race, and you're going to find racism everywhere you look, what you're doing is you're shouting it from the rooftops that white people have all the power. If I were a white person and I had never heard this before, and I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, you hate me, you despise me at this point, it's pretty obvious, but you're saying I have all the power? Good.
correct.
I got you.
Correct.
Like it
And
just sounds like you're telling the enemy, hey, come get me, I hate you. And I think it, at worst, if you were conniving, that's a bad strategy. If you're actually trying to solve problems, it is the worst strategy because you're creating more enemies than you are allies.
you do, and it's really sad. And I was on the CL Bryant show this morning, and we were talking about outreach and everything else. And I said we have to really start reaching out to our youth. I mean, I'm Generation X. I'm not getting any younger. I try to stay up to current events as much as I can, and what's hip, try to do more outreach to the younger generation. So when I run again, because that's going to be my
I don't
target.
understand millennials. I
I,
don't understand millennials.
you
I'm
know,
I'm
I,
a millennial. I'm a millennial. I'm at the top of millennial, but I don't understand my own generation. I think I was
what
born in
year,
the wrong generation.
what year were you born?
1987. I'm 33. I just turned
Okay,
30.
but I'm talking about the ones born in the 90s, the midnight in the 2000s. Those are the ones that, the 80s kids, I'll give you guys a pass. Because you
Well,
had people like me that were probably your brother and your sister and your cousins, like,
yeah,
no, we're gonna watch Yo MTV Raps at 5 o'clock. You're right there with us. And you're
I
watching
miss
Soul
old
Train.
MTV.
Yeah, and you're
Oh
watching
man,
Soul
and
Train on
Soul Train.
Saturdays. So Don
Fat
Cornelius, Saturday.
Albert and
Yeah,
Alf and oh my
the
god, and
the
the
80s.
Jeffersons.
Yes, the 80s people, I said, 'cause I'm Generation X, but the 80s people, I said, I give you guys a pass, but I'm talking about the 90s and the 2000s. Those are the
Yeah.
ones that we have to really do a lot of outreach and critical thinking. It's not going
Hmm.
to take overnight, but we have to do a lot of critical thinking with them by telling them, if you're out there marching and saying, power to the people, I get it, but who are you saying power to the people for? How much are
Oh
these
yeah.
people paying that organization? Is the money going back into the community? Just like I read an article with BLM, the organization, not the grassroots, but the organization.
BLM Incorporated.
They collected billions of dollars and nothing went back down to the grassroots. And that's where they have to start saying, wait a minute, maybe some of these people are saying what is correct. And
Hmm.
you have to start chipping away, but the MAGA people don't know how to do it. and
No,
and and I have some, and I tell everybody, I'm not against it. I'm not the one wearing my hat every day. I got a shirt, I got a hat, I got all that stuff. But if I go to an event, that's okay, I'm going to wear the hat, or I may take off my hat or take a picture. But
I'm not gonna lie. I burnt one of my hats. I still have two. I have a black MAGA hat and I have a
I
red MAGA hat. But I
I,
burnt
I
the one I got from the Blexit event.
oh wow.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I I love the guy that sent me there. I've had good conversations with him. But when I got there, I was so pissed. I was so not. I mean, besides the fact it was half-assed and it was thrown together and it was very last minute, and then we found out at like 9, 10 o'clock at night we were going to the White House the next day. And it was
Oh,
that one right after. Yeah, it was right after Trump got over COVID. So it was
oh,
that event at the White House.
Oh, I was it Back to Blue?
Yeah, the Back to
I
Blue
was
rally.
there. I was
You
there.
were?
Yes,
I didn't see you there.
I was there. I'll send you my pic. I got coined by, if I could find it. I got coined by Mark Meadows because I was right up front. But
To
see
be
what I
honest,
did.
that is where I got most. That's where I got half of my followers right there.
But let me tell you,
I
I
posted the pic of me there, and I was like, I
I'll send
feel
you
like
my
you just
pictures.
lost
I
everything.
went. I went. And we, we found out the day that we landed we were going to the White
Hmm.
House. You had to fill out the background check, whatever, whatever. But
Yeah,
I actually wore one of my police shirts that the sheriff's department gave me because they endorsed me to honor one of the fallen officers. And that's what I wore. And you had to wear the t-shirt to get in, but I took my t-shirt
yeah.
off and I had it, and Mark Meadows came up to me. He said, "Tell me." He said, "Was this your spouse?" And I told him who I was. I was running for Congress, and I gave him one of my sheriff's coins. He's like, "Wow." I said, "This is on behalf of Riverside Sheriff's Department. I want to coin you." And then I gave him my card, and he said, "Oh, I got a coin for you too." He gave me one of his challenge coins.
Nice.
I
I
said, "That's the
went.
highest challenge coin I got." But I was right up front. I was literally up front. And, you know, I was probably the only one that didn't wear the t-shirt the whole event because I wanted to wear the fallen officer shirt, and everybody was like, "Wow." I said, "I'm representing him." But no, I went to that event in October.
I took the t-shirt off right after we got to the White House, and
I
I was standing there, and it was because I met a lot of people that were they've been to multiple Brexit rallies and stuff, and then I met people who it was their first time going, and
mhm.
damn near everyone I met that it was their first time, they're like, I'll never come back to one of these again.
I went to the first one they did in LA. It was the first one.
Okay.
And I said, this I just look, I'm like, "Where's the voter registration table?" It's like,
Yeah,
but
there was tons
I
of
met some.
energy.
It was so many people, but I'm like, nobody's registering nobody to vote. What the heck? You want everybody to walk away and get off the plantation and not be and not become trained monkeys, but you're not registering people to vote. So I said that
Yeah,
was thing. But I met a lot of great people. I can say that I did have some
yeah,
fun. Some people I disagreed with, but we did have fun. And I'm in downtown nasty LA, and I said, "Oh my God, this is horrible." I'm walking through P, and I'm a California native, and I said, "This is disgusting down here. I'm not coming back anytime soon." But
no,
it's what I tell people. It's good when people get hyped up when they see the mainstream people, and I say
yeah,
that. But when you get people that have been in it for a long time, like Sunny Johnson, I like looking at her. um she's been around for a long time. You have yourself, you have myself, you have Jeff, you have Felicia. You have a lot of people, and those are the people that I say that we can really start reaching and get the critical thinking. Some of these people
yeah.
you can't get through. They're just stuck, and you just move on. It's like a cat trying to bury a turd underneath concrete. You have to
I
move on.
thought I thought with all of you guys in it, like I in 2018, I was like, you know what? I could run for office. I could be the guy to step out there, and I could do this because I read like a book every 2 days.
Me too.
I didn't finish my degree, but I
Okay.
just because I didn't see it as necessary.
Mhm.
I don't work in a field. I'm not a lawyer. I don't work in a field where I need it, and I see it as largely a piece of paper. I know more people that have degrees that are dumb as shit than I do the people that have degrees and continue their education and are incredibly intelligent.
I have
So I'm
three.
like, obviously, well, you're incredibly intelligent. So
Well,
that kind of brings to a point.
but you know what? No, what I tell people, I've education has always been instilled with me because my grandmother, her background, her father had a third grade education. He couldn't read or write. Her mother was just a housewife, so She said, I'm going to push education on myself. My grandmother, she passed away last year, so she had a master's degree in nursing. And, she's always pushed education. And she said, get that education experience because nobody can take your degree away from you. She said, whether you use it or not. My grandfather, too, he's a retired chief master sergeant. He had a bachelor's degree, but to me, he fought 3 wars. He had more education than me because he helped liberate the Jews. He's been all over the place. He was a POW. I mean, to me, that was the best education. And he didn't even, he grew up, yeah, I mean, he didn't even have, he grew up poor too. And that's why he joined the military, actually Army Air Corps, and then he went to the Air Force. And I look at people and I say, yeah, you have educated fools. And then you have people who are intelligent and who do have a great sound of mind because they have a lot of life experience. You
Yeah,
can get a lot of life experience. You go get an education. You can get that degree, and you're outsmarting the dean and all those faculty people because a lot of them don't have life experience. And that's why I even
right.
look at so many socialists. They say, "Oh, socialist, socialist." I'm like, have you been paying attention or study socialism? Have you been
Most of
keeping
them
up
have.
with? They
Most of them
never.
have. But and I can't say any better about most conservatives because
That's true.
most conservatives, I mean, we say
That's true.
conservative, but in reality, the conservative movement started out as the modern liberal movement back in the
Yes.
1700s. I mean, you
Yes.
had de Montesquieu, Alexis de Tocqueville, Jefferson, Blackwood. You had all these different thinkers back in the day that had figured out the what we thought as individual liberty and liberties
Correct.
that were God given and not could not be taken or should not be taken by government. And
Correct.
the prospect of God given liberty versus liberty bestowed by the state. I My parents always were like education comes in many forms.
It does.
Education is pure acquisition of knowledge, and you can acquire knowledge a number of ways. The most popular way is instruction through some sort of university or institution. However, the purest, the most was it profitable form of education is always going to be that you go and get yourself, because that's the stuff you're going to remember. The stuff that you go get yourself that you're called to go for is the stuff you're going to remember. And
Correct.
I know a lot of conservatives that don't know all this. Like we just said, they don't know the Black Republican history. They don't
No.
know about the Lily White movement. And when I
Oh,
say
oh,
Lily
thank
White
you. We can talk about that
movement,
all day.
when I tell people, I'm like, you guys don't know about the Lily White movement, they're like, well, why are you blaming us for that? I'm like, I'm not blaming you for it.
But we're
I'm
telling
telling
you,
you this is what happened. So when you started slavery and then you skip to the civil rights movement, you missed 100 years of contextual knowledge to where you should be able to sit there and say, look, I recognize that we fucked up. However, and we haven't always been there, but we're here now and we want to make it better. We want to make it right. The first issue of solving a problem is recognizing there was a problem to begin with.
and that's so
And
hard.
you never pitch an idea with its brand straight out the gate. You have to pitch with what it can do for you straight
Correct.
out the gate, and then you end with the brand. So whereas we start with Democrats are evil, come vote Republican, we should be saying, hey, I can solve your problems this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way. These are our principles. This is where we agree, and we only disagree on like 10%.
Correct.
Do you think you can vote for me? And if you will vote for me, how would you like to join the party and see how this goes? How
When
would you
I
like
was
to ride or
running,
die with us?
I was running, and me and my good friend, she was my assistant. We were putting up signs, jumbo signs, and so I said, "Let's go put one over here." And it was like a vacant lot with the fence, and across the street was a Black Lives Matter booth. And so the lady came over. She said, "What you putting up?" I said, "Well, I'm running for Congress." She said, "Oh, great." And hold on real quick. Hold on real quick.
Oh, no problem.
My mom said, "What are we going to eat for dinner?" But and so I told her, and I said, "Well, I'm running for Congress here." She said, "You Democrat or Republican?" I said, "Republican." She went, "Ah." I said, hold on." So I grabbed her one of
Mhm.
my flyers, and she looked at it, and she said, "Oh, you're against sex trafficking." I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "You're a veteran." I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "My family are veterans. They're over there at March and at the veteran cemetery. She said, "You want to fight help the homeless?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Who's this guy?" She said, "He looked crazy." And I said, "That's my opponent." And I told her about him and his issues. And she said, "You know what? You got my vote." We talked
There are
about
many,
issues.
many people that have never even seen a Republican.
And she
And
looked at me and she asked me, she said, "You for Black Lives?" I said, "Ma'am, I am Black." And she said, "Oh, you one of them sisters." I said, "Yeah, I'm one of them sisters." So she said, "Okay."
Mhm,
She said, "I like this." She said, "I like how you presented. You didn't come yell at me or my son." And he said, "Wow, this is really nice for what you did, whether they voted for me or not." But she listened. And that's
mhm.
what I tell a lot of Republicans. I said, if you just talk about simple, not simple as in whatever issues, public safety, good education, lower taxes, let's work together, let's bring in better paying jobs, people will listen. But they're not going to
Yeah,
listen to you when you calling somebody a neo-Nazi or a communist. They're not going to listen to you. You running around saying F you and going back to where you came. They're not going to listen.
yeah,
You just go, we're all human beings. I will
yeah.
tune you out. I tune people in our own party out because I'd be like, I don't want to hear it. Come back to me, talk some better sense. And
There
and
are
I
people on the right I just can't listen to. Like, I can
oh
admit that everybody has their own lane. Everyone
yes,
has their own lane. And there are people that excel within their lane, but they regularly step outside their lane and they do horrible. For example, Mark Levin, legal analysis of the Constitution, spectacular,
right.
spectacular. Legal analysis, courtroom strategy, explanation, great. Let him talk about cultural issues, done, destroyed. Same with Ben Shapiro, legal analysis, fantastic. The ability to debate and argue a point, fantastic. The ability to make any cultural argument whatsoever, no. I'm pretty sure that dude goes to bed as a 2-year-old listening to Mozart and Bach. So, and that goes the same for Larry Elder.
That's my friend.
Larry Elder, yeah. I'm like,
Literally.
dude, I, as far as his ability to debate, he's fantastic. He can make an intellectual argument all day. He can't make a cultural argument to save his life.
But this is where I
And I don't
you
think it's for lack of trying. I think it's literally it's when you deal in talking points for too long, you get to the point where that's all you can argue. My dad is a big 6'3" Italian guy. He is the definition of once you go black, you don't go back. Like, I've never seen him with a white woman, at least not that I can remember. And he is one of those dudes. He knows every bit of history and culture and black history and all of it.
I
But
I have
he
a friend
loves
like
to
that.
argue. Yeah, but he
I
loves to argue.
and my friend, he is white, and he said, "I know more about your history than you do." I said, "Bring it on."
Yeah.
And because he was a historian in the Marine
Yeah.
Corps, and then I met him when I was deployed, and so he was a historian for the Air Force, and
Okay.
he could this all he didn't even take notes. It was just like,
Yeah.
wow. And we used to have all these conversations, and I mean, military history, black history, Hispanic and Latino history, Middle Eastern history, and the guy's
Hmm.
a genius. And you do have people like that, but we need to highlight them more so they can
Yeah.
get out and get a bigger and better platform. I know people, one of my favorite economists, Walter Williams, just passed away. I enjoy
Yeah.
listening to Walter Williams. I know people may disagree or agreed, but
Oh no, I love Walter Williams.
yeah, and I
He's
wanted to meet him so
fantastic.
badly. Now you have Thomas Sowell, and I even mentioned on C.L. Bryant, I'm like, hint, hint, maybe I could try to meet him. And then you have Milton Friedman. You even had Ayn Rand, and somebody bashed me. They said, "How can you even listen to her? Because she was an atheist." And I said, "And you're a Christian." I said, "Well, you don't know if she found Jesus before she died. You can't judge." But they were intellectual thinking. They were
Yeah.
intellectual debaters. But we don't have that anymore. We don't
I
have
tell people,
people.
if God is the 10% that I don't agree with you on, we're still 90% of the way there. If you agree
But
on individual rights and principles and stuff,
correct,
and you have
correct.
a strong, unflinching moral finality to your thinking, but you don't agree on God being the one true God, or you believe there's multiple gods, or you believe in Allah or whatever, I'm like, 90% is still a A. We're still
But
good.
But you and I, we both served, and we worked with so many different kinds of people, and you learn
Yeah.
so much. You've been to the Middle East. I've been to the Middle East.
Yeah.
And I am a believer in Jesus Christ as my savior. But when I went over to the Middle
Yeah.
East, I still had to respect the customs and the courtesies, because I didn't want to get kicked out the country and get written up and probably discharged. I didn't go over there and say, "Well, I'm an American, I'm a female, and I'm ripping everything off." I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. It's a respect, because that's how we're taught in the military. But the intellectual thinking, I think, starting a coalition to counter within our own, because I don't see
Yeah.
that too many intellectual thinkers where you can challenge on the stage and say, I hear and agree with Killer Mike, even though we're in the opposite of political parties, but you have to agree what he's saying is
Yeah.
correct when it comes to the Black community and bringing back the Black Wall Streets and Black economic empowerment. Same thing with the Hispanic and Latino community, because I have a lot of Hispanic and Latino friends. My godmother's from Guatemala, and just learning from them and telling them, "Hey, this is what I believe that you guys should pay attention. Look what happened to the Black community over the years. This is what the Democrats are doing to you, did to us, and they're going to do to you." And a lot of them are like, "Yeah, you're right. You are right." Because they want to
Yeah.
work hard. They want to have a business. They don't like the taxes. They don't want the government telling them what to do, because they came from a country, whether it was Mexico or Venezuela or Nicaragua or Colombia, and the government took everything from them. So they came over here. Look at the Cubanos in Florida. They would tell you in a heartbeat, "We vote Republican." and
Yeah.
and that's why they're so strong over there, because they knew, and they're teaching their kids. We fled from Fidel Castro because we know what communism and socialism is. And that's where you get people, and to start doing these testimonies and start talking normally instead of the parrot talking points all the time, which it is annoying. I know as a candidate
Yeah.
we're trained to do that, but I'm trying to redo my talking points where I can relate to that Democrat mother whose only concern is she wants public safety in a better school. She's a single mother, and say, "Hey, I want to make sure you have good school, whether it's public school, school choice, or private school. Make sure you're well off. Make sure you can get a good paying job and you're safe at home. Matter of fact, I'll help you. Hey, you want to get your CCW? Yeah, okay, I got the connection at the police department to make sure you're safe." That's how we need to start talking to people, not "Get out the plantation." It's like, oh, please, not now.
Well,
You throw people off.
that's the problem is our talking points are focused wrong. They're focused on the Democrat Party and not on the voter.
Exactly.
So the Democrats focus all their talking points on what will make the voter an active voter, what will make a prospective voter or eligible voter an active voter. They make their things their all their talking points are either inspiring or fear based. Both will
Yeah.
get somebody to the poll.
You know
Ours
who was the best?
ours are rage based against an organization. That will only get a certain sect of people to the poll. It
I
is a
know when
largely like I don't hate Audi enough to go buy a Subaru. It's just how it is. I don't hate Audi enough to go buy a Subaru. I don't hate Japan enough that I'm going to go and buy a European car. There's not that is not the rage is not a primary driver of votes. There are two primaries, and it's fear and inspiration.
Correct.
You
You know who
inspire
was
people, you get a lot of people to the polls.
you know
Like
who was the
Donald
best?
Trump, State of the Union, fantastic. Ronald Reagan, State of the Union, fantastic. JFK, State of the Union, spectacular. Barack Obama, just about anywhere. That dude
But
can inspire people.
that's what I was going to say. And I always tell Republicans, I said, regardless of how you feel about him, you cannot deny he is the most inspirational speaker
Oh
as a
yeah.
black man. I mean, I was sitting there like, wow. I
Hmm.
remember when he first, it was when he was, I don't know if he had just gotten elected or he just accepted his nomination. He said, I grew up with a single mother. And I'm like, me too. I
Hmm.
had student loans. My grandparents raised me. I'm like, me too. My grandparents
Yep.
raised me too, single mom. And we worked hard. And I'm like, wow, me too. And I forgot he was a Democrat
Yeah.
because he used his life experience and
Yep.
saying, I know how it feels to be raised by a single mom and going and your grandparents being there and you're going up and up in the world. Where we as Republicans, a lot of them, well, I grew up in a gated community. Well, you're not relating to everybody because not everybody grew up or went to private school or a gated community or your father was the president or CEO of Harvard. I mean, you can't relate to people.
Yeah. That's
And,
what
and
that's
you're
what
putting
about
people
the academics. It doesn't work.
and you're
Like,
putting people to speak that can't even relate to other people because and then you say, oh, let's pick a minority to speak. But I'm like, well, that minority is only 20 years old. I'm not going to mention no names, but they don't even have life experience.
I'm not gonna lie, I have an issue with people who have just been red pilled. I
I
am a lifelong conservative. Like, I am well steeped in conservative history and black history and economics and theology and all of it. I know my principles and I knew them well before I even considered politics. And I'm only going into politics because I feel it necessary to get in the fight.
I became a
However,
registered.
when I see red
Oh,
pilled people, I'm like,
I don't want to hear.
you're a
I
baby. I'm like, you're an intellectual baby. You just found conservatism. You
and you
may be
haven't
smart
studied
as
it.
hell. Yeah,
You
I'm like, you
haven't
may be
studied it.
smart as hell, but you only got that much. Listening to Larry Elder and Thomas Sowell and Walter E. Williams and Milton Friedman isn't enough. They
No,
have decades and decades. They have well over 100 years of collective knowledge behind them that each
exactly.
one of them have studied to get to their own conclusions. And you haven't even scratched the surface of that.
And
There's
you're
a
just
lot
watching.
that goes into Thomas Sowell's economic
Yes.
ideas.
And,
And
and,
Walter E. Williams is better at getting into the culture. And Larry Elder is good at specifically debating on
yes.
those topics. And then I'm like, so you have all these intellectual thinkers. And while, yes, they fall short on the current cultural argument because they're not a part of the current culture.
And
It's
that's a great point.
grumpy old men. They end up. My dad loves old school hip hop, like Slick
I
Rick,
do.
Nine by
I still
Nature.
listen to
Yeah,
it.
like he's old school hip hop, and I am too. But he's like, yeah, no, hip hop died in like 2005.
It.
He,
I
he
mean, I can
hip
go
hop
back
died after
listening.
the Carter Three.
I can go back and I can say, yeah, I was listening to African Bubata back in the day. And I mean, that was hip hop. That was the real deal when it came to rap.
Kool Herc was fucking awesome. I loved it. I love it all. And I'm sitting here going, I'm like, but then these guys got old and they got grumpy and they don't see any value in the current culture. And I keep telling people, I'm like, current hip hop isn't designed for me and you. It's
Mm-mm.
designed for suburban white kids that are rebelling against their parents. I'm like, we make up 12% of the population, 13 on a good year, 13% on a good year. I'm like, we can't buy 300 million records. We can't. We can't download 300 million times the same song. Trust
No,
me. Uh, I go looking for a bargain everywhere. I'm not downloading the same song 10 times.
no,
That's not happening. So I'm like, when people are like, "Oh man, black music and black culture is a problem," I'm like, it's not
no.
culture. What you think is my culture is the parody of my culture you've been presented.
I
Because
tell people,
I
I
like Black Thought and Killer Mike and Common and Mos Def and Nas
yep,
and Locksmith and
yes,
and Papoose, and I like old school Busta and friggin' LL and Naughty by Nature and
Nas,
Heavy D, and like I love
yes.
all these old dudes that when they spoke they had something to say.
And they had a message because they saw it firsthand. And that's where you brought up a good point. You have all these newbies, but they don't have the knowledge. They haven't even expanded. I became a registered Republican when Bush became president because I voted for Bush. But out of high school, I registered a Democrat. I didn't know any better, but I knew about the Republican Party and conservatism. But I didn't know any better. It was cool because they all came in when you're 18 in high school, registered to vote, Democrat. It was all my friends. But conservatism and republicanism, I always knew that growing up. My grandma was from the South. He had a lot of conservative values. When it came down to the family and doing little things, having Sunday dinner, going to church and all that other stuff, and I've never been pro-abortion. I said, how can somebody kill a baby? And I'm very pro-life. And I started studying more and more and more. I said, I don't get this party switch because that was ingrained in me and in school with a party switch. And I'm like, how does a party switch? So I did my own research. I did my own thinking. I started getting more exposed to different people. And I said, wow, what they're saying, I agree with. What they're saying, I may little disagree with because of my age difference, but I get what they're
Mhm.
saying because they're a lot older than me and they experience different than me. But when you're talking about the red pill people and everything else, it's like you guys have a lot to learn and you have to
Yeah,
start opening your mind and stop telling us to stop saying black. Stop telling us to say, well, we're pro women, or stop telling us to say that we're this. You need to understand the culture and
yeah,
why we are conservative as minorities and women as well. And that's the
yeah,
thing where I do blame the party, but I also blame mainstream media too, because they're not putting a lot of people on to really start breaking it down. Everybody has a different experience. You have a different
yeah,
experience. I have a different experience. Yes, we're both minorities, but you have a different vision where Jeff has a different experience. Sonny has and Felicia, we all different, but we all have something in common where we say we have to start challenging these other talking points, and others going to have to start listening and saying, wow, they're challenging what they're saying, even though they don't always agree or disagree, but we're presenting it in a different way. And that's where I
exactly.
go back to, try to come together. I know some people can't come together, and that's understandable because they're too fixated on the paycheck. But at the
Yeah,
same time, you know, some of these red pill people, they're going to have to start listening because I'm sorry, but if you keep this going on, you're going to tear our party down even more. And
most
or we're
of
going
the
to break
red
away.
people, most of the red pill people, like when I was at the Blexit event, every one of the red pill people that said that they had just become a conservative. They after realizing some things, I'm like, oh, so somebody presented you some facts that you had never heard before, and you were willing to listen. So I see that as an avenue to go, all right, let me give you a little bit more. Let me go, let's dig a little bit deeper. And then like I keep my reading list downloaded on my phone. And it's just it's actually a really abbreviated list because the real one is like 400 books, but the short one is like friggin' 40. So I'm like, all right, I'll text you my reading list, just a
Okay.
quick, so like you could just check out the covers and you'll be able to find the books.
Right.
And after talking to these people, I'm like, all right, well, let's get into some history. You say Democrats were the slave owners. Let's go into the Lily White history. All right, you say in the civil rights, let's change the metrics of the civil rights era. Because, or you say the big switch is a lie. Let me explain to you why it's a lie. Because
Yes.
just saying it's a lie is not enough. You have to explain why it's a lie. The whole idea of it, like if you look at the governance, the idea of governance between the two parties, the only thing that changed was where we voted. That was it.
Correct.
I'm like, and that's their whole justification is Nixon made an appeal to Southern white voters and black people started voting Democrat. No, black people started voting Democrat well before the 60s. And that was driven by black Marxists like W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm like,
Eh,
there's a whole lot going
it's
on
a
there.
whole lot. I mean,
Way,
it,
way
it
before.
goes way back. I mean, 1920s, 1930s, the New Deal, and a lot of people don't even study that. And I tell people, you have if you want a good understanding, you really need to open your mind and probably take a Black history class. And start saying, okay, let me start reading more and more before I start getting on my soapbox and telling everybody to get off a plantation. No, I never been on I have visited a plantation. My grandmother took me to one when we went to Louisiana, and that's where she's from. And she said, I'm going to take you to a plantation so you know your roots. And I said, okay. And it was very emotional. It was sad, but she said, I want to show you where your roots come from. This is the plantation, and it
Yeah.
was an educational experience. And it was the Oak Alley, very beautiful. But she said, this is a slave house, this is the big house. And I learned that at a young age. I was literally 7 years old,
I
and I
almost
remember.
Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
And I've been to
I was
Mississippi.
looking
I'll
on
never
the
go back to
Southern Miss.
Mississippi again. I said, now I was in Biloxi. I said that was just too much for me. I said I was called gal too many times, and my temperament was getting short. So
I will say, me and my wife being an interracial couple, we did not get the best looks walking through
I
Hattiesburg,
know.
Mississippi, until they saw me with they realized that we were Marines,
Okay, yeah.
and for some reason that changed. I was like, so y'all see color, but the color y'all see above everything is green.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, if you see green above everything, I can fix you. I'm like, I can fix you. I'm
What
like,
nation?
your
What
people are gonna
nationality is your wife? What nationality is your wife? What race is your
she
wife?
don't she don't know.
Oh, she don't
She
know.
don't. She
Okay.
she's white and they're like Swedish, Irish,
Oh,
English,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, like so much whiteness they honestly don't know. And they're like
And
maybe
they look at you too
Scandinavian.
and say, "Oh my God." Well, how do you
Yeah.
think they felt about me? It's funny because people say, "Oh, your mom's white, your dad's black." I'm like, "No." Or your dad's white. I'm like, "No." They were just two light-skinned people who got married, had me,
Yeah.
and they looked at
Yeah.
me like, "What the hell?" I said, "This is how I came." And people said, "Well, your grandparents." I said, "Nope, they're both everybody."
One of
I
my
just
exes was actually both. She was lighter than me. She what Redbone, like
Redbone. Yep,
reddish, yeah, reddish, curly, beautiful hair, green eyes, and light skin. But both her parents were dark as night,
yep. I have cousins
dark
like
as
that.
night. And I was like, damn, this is amazing. This is
Well,
absolutely amazing. I didn't think it was possible.
I
Like I was
remember
young. I was like in high school, so
I remember a friend of a neighbor, we had a little mini family reunion at my house a long time ago. I was like maybe 12. And my little next door neighbor, Christy, she's like, "Can I come?" I was like, "Yeah, meet my cousins, meet my aunts." And she was like, "Wow, you got the whole You got every shade of black in this house. And she was confused. And my grandma said, yeah, these are my brothers and my sisters. And she was like all confused, like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
She admitted later, she said, I really thought that you were half white and half black. And I said, no. You know, and to me, I like to talk about that too to people when people meet me, especially in the Republican Party, because they said,
Mhm.
well, Aja, you're not black. And I'm like, yes, I am. Here's, you want my birth certificate?
Yeah.
And it's like, and 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 they get confused. And I have to explain to them. I said, you know, if you really want to get down to the ancestry.com, we can do that. But at the same time, culturally and both sides of my family, here they are. So I can't, you know, you're making me say that I'm something that I'm not. And when I present myself as a black female Republican, that's who I am. And you have a lot of young people and a lot of girls and a lot of young men too. They say, wow, we can relate to you because you look like my aunt or you look like my cousin and you're a Republican. I am a Republican. And that's where I see what our party, they get bent out of shape, like you said earlier, with race.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, you know, I'm not gonna mention names, but the head of the party, she lives in an area where it's like, how many minorities live where you live? So you can't relate to minorities. You can't say
I
you
actually I got some information right during the RNC. I was talking to a gentleman and I found out that there might have been some opposition to some people speaking on stage at the RNC. And there's
when was this?
some people that look like us.
Oh.
Yeah, the basically the all the like Kimberly Klasick and Kevin Daniels
Mm,
and all of them, there was some pushback against them being on stage at the RNC and Trump won that argument, but it was not received well. And I keep saying, yes, for the average voter, they do not know how to discuss race, but that is because there are, like, I say this for conspiracies in general. There are only 2 to 3 people that need to be in on a conspiracy. There's a very small amount of people need to be in on anything for it to work. Everybody else just needs it's the intersectionality of common interests.
right.
There are people at the top of the food chain within the party that do not think very highly of us. And
No, I've seen it.
it's not that the average voter. It's not the average voter because the average voter can be talked to, can be swayed, can be explained, they can learn. And from my experience, the average voter doesn't know much about Black history,
No, they don't.
doesn't know much about our history in the party, doesn't know much about Republican history in general,
Nope.
and doesn't know much about the conservative principles beyond the revolution, beyond Jefferson and Madison, if that.
Correct.
So the educating them, once you get a little bit deeper, they go, oh, you have way more information than I thought you did.
Right.
And their perspective changes. And I go, yes, now that I've educated you on just conservative history, let me go a little bit deeper into Black conservative history.
Mm-hmm.
The history of our party. And once they hear the history of our party, they go, damn, that we really should be next to each other. I'm like, yes,
Correct.
we really should be, but the problem is you see where the flaws were in history. Now let's rectify those flaws and make a more genuine statement and appeal towards people, not one built on that lack of knowledge that you had 10 minutes ago or
And
30 minutes ago.
and that
And that's when they
and
get that
that's
information from the party bosses.
and that's where it goes back to, I keep telling everybody, it's education, education, education. We got to grow as the ground roots and start challenging others within our own party, you know,
Yep.
whether it be Twitter or having videos like this. You can
Yeah.
invite somebody and say, hey, you disagree with me? Come on my show. Or, hey, I like what you're saying. Come on my show. We could do a whole entire panel discussion and broadcast it and say, hey, they're really thinking. They're really showing you that there are differences in our party. And I tell people that, and I said, you're gonna have to have an open mind. Like I have a friend, she got red pill. She's very sweet and everything. And she said, here I was, I like being a Republican. I like Trump. And then she started talking about black issues. And I said, please don't do that. Just don't do that. And she said, well, I'm so infatuated. And I said, what you need to do before you post something, before you respond back, I said, you really need to go start. I said, I can give you a book list as too. I said, you
Yeah.
really need to start learning and observing. It's not going to happen in a weekend, but you need to start going to learn and observe everything before you make a post, because she did make a post and I said, you know what, I think you need to take that down because you were wrong. And
I
sometimes you have to
purposely
do that.
I purposely pissed off my entire New Hampshire GOP. I got on the so earlier when I first got into politics and I started getting into activism and shit, I made
Funny.
t-shirts called Black Lives Make America Great Again.
Okay.
I was like, hey, you know what?
Okay.
I didn't like the fact that both that the black when George Floyd first got knelt on,
Mm-hmm.
the majority of the country, I'd say about 90% of the country, was universally like, wow, that was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And then the media stepped in and went and basically put MAGA versus Black Lives Matter by saying,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, Black Lives Matter stands for this, which means we're Republicans, being contrarian to everything the left does, and the left being contrarian to everything we do, we must immediately take the reactionary response against this, which is where we do what we always do, where we look up the guy's past and go, oh, well, he was a drug addict, and he did this and he did that, so it must have been justified. No, it wasn't justified.
No.
Like, I was military police. I could have easily put that guy down. And friggin', if he had been put in the car properly, he wouldn't have been able to jump out the other side of the fucking car and run around fighting with people. Even if he was cuffed, the car door would have been locked. He would have been at worst smacking his head around inside the car, in which that's his fault, not mine. There's a little bit more that goes into that with prisoner custody, but I'm not going to get into that. That's a long discussion. And I just did a police brutality episode.
I even
But
have to say, even the president even came out, and I was even shocked. Sean Hannity, he said that was the worst thing I ever seen in my life, and I was shocked.
yeah,
Sean Hannity came out and said this is wrong.
so the media made the whole argument. They literally manufactured an argument where the entire country was damn near like, wow, we really need to start looking at policing, and then bam, media came in and created a fight between the two parties so that it could be politicized.
Correct.
And I sat here and said, look, I'm going to make these t-shirts because I know damn well people are going to ask me about them. And they're going to have something to say about them because I'm an asshole and I like to start shit. So immediately I posted a t-shirt. I said, hey, buy my new t-shirt. I just made these. And everyone went, oh my God, you're one. How are you even on a Republican page? And I go, I co-opted two statements that are 100% true.
Correct.
Black lives do matter. And I want to make America great again. I'm like, well, you're saying Black Lives Matter means that all lives don't matter. I go, no. That is what the media told you. That is what the media told you. Somebody got in a debate, and in order to win the debate, when Black Lives Matter came up, they said all lives matter. And that became a coined phrase. I'm like, that's how pundits talk. That's how politicians talk. But we, person to person, we don't need to talk like that. You say you believe in Jesus Christ. I don't say I believe in Allah. Fuck you.
Right.
I'm like, that's not how we discuss things. We have much more in-depth intellectual discussions on a regular basis, and we're blue-collar people, the majority of us,
Yes, we are.
which is where my blue-collar intellectual logo came from. Is I'm a blue-collar guy. I choose a blue-collar job because I enjoy working with my hands, and I hate having to work in an office. And I realize going into politics is contrarian to that, but it's necessary now because I think more people like me and you need to be in office. More veterans, firefighters, cops, more
You,
average, everyday
well,
people that know how to talk solutions
our
over
founders were
politics.
that way. Our founders were just the average person.
Yeah, they
They
were
were
they were
they were
merchants,
pastors, they were farmers, they were business owners. They were just the average
fishermen.
person. Hmm?
Yeah,
Hmm. They
fishermen,
were fit
merchants. They were
and
just
we need.
well steeped in the events of the day.
Yep,
That's why the Constitution is not a legal document. It's a layman's document. It's something that everybody could understand at that time. Which is why I
correct,
keep telling people if you read it in the context of the language at that time, it
correct.
is cut and dry. You read the
It
Federalist
is what it
Papers,
is.
yeah, you read the Federalist Papers, there's no interpretation needed. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand this. Now, I'm like, and they expressly said that every law should be well understood in plain language for the average individual. Our legal system created the laws that only lawyers can understand.
Correct.
I'm like, that came way, way later. It actually came about 80 years later
Well,
after
they
the
did it
Constitution.
deliberately. They did it deliberately.
Hmm. So that they basically could lord over us. It was a power
Yes,
move. And
they
it's
did it
arguably the
deliberately,
greatest
and
power move I've ever seen.
they made it confusing, and that's why you have a lot of problems today.
Hmm.
But
And when I look at the two movements, and I looked at that argument after explaining it to people, and I literally, it took me, I had that debate with well over 300 people, um, all day, every day for about 3 weeks.
wow,
All day, every day for about 3 weeks. Mentally and fit. My wife was so ready. She was like, she's like, you know what, sleep on the couch. Sleep on the couch. Because I was up literally on my phone. My phone was vibrating. It vibrated off my dresser multiple times. And all hours of the night. So I'm just sitting there, I'm like, you know what? Just pounding espresso, drinking coffee, and debating people and explaining. And finally it got to the point where the people at the top of the argument that I'd already explained it to started to argue it for me, which is why I find I realize I'm like, now we're starting to get somewhere. Now you guys understand. Now you guys are starting to spread it out to people. And that's the argument we need to have is look, the media wants to put us against each other. When there
yes.
is a divide, they need a divide. They make
Well,
money off of it, and they're idealistically opposed to us all being able to understand each other. Because the one thing the establishment in both parties don't like is when we all agree that they are unnecessary.
oh, they hate it. Hey, I'm gonna go get something to eat, but can I come back on?
Most definitely, I want to have you
I love
and
this conversation.
I want to have you and Miss Harriet Tubman
Oh
and Miss
yeah, oh yeah.
Pinky. Yep, I want
We
to
were
have you guys
sharing
on
dog
because
pictures earlier.
yep. Oh man, Miss Harriet Tubman has two videos attached to her profile that I went to look at. She has a YouTube link, and it led me to three videos back to back. Two on Black history in America,
Okay,
and basically why there's a divide in the discussion, why people don't understand why we need to have the discussion, and
I'm gonna watch
one
that
on
tonight.
the evangelical movement that popped up
Okay,
after the second, the different how the evangelical movement had changed throughout history from
it's on
Bob
her.
Johnson all the way.
It's
Yeah, it's attached to her main page. And I was like, man, I need to have you both on. We need to discuss this because the content of both videos, there's a lot of facts thrown out there. I think there's a lot of nuance that can be added to it in a relation to where we are right now and how we can move the conversation forward. And I like to share all these conversations with my state GOP page so that they understand that, look, we can be black. Like, I'm black and I'm American.
Can you send me the link?
Yep. I'll send it to you right after this. It's
Yeah.
It's I think it's Holy Post on YouTube. I think that's the guy's YouTube page. I
Holy
subscribe to
Post?
his YouTube page. Like, I don't think idealistically he agrees with us on where he lands politically, but
Is it Holy
his
Post Race in America?
I think that's it. Yeah,
Okay. I'll watch
I
that
think
tonight.
that's yeah. It's right on. It's right on Miss Harriet's home on her page.
Okay.
Let me confirm real quick.
Yeah, double check. I'll watch it tonight.
We need to talk
Yep,
about
Holy
race.
Post Race in
Why are
America.
people protesting?
The two videos, there's a lot of facts in there. There's both of them are pretty good. I listened to them this morning, and then I listened to while I was working, and then I listened to Maj Torre's interview.
I like
with,
Maj.
oh, I love him. He's
I
great.
like Maj.
Yeah, he was
I
on.
actually like. I actually do like Hotep Jesus. I say he be putting some.
Hotep is on point. I
Yes.
need to talk to Hotep because I got a plan for fixing the election for a voting
Hold on.
system.
Let me let my dog out. Hold on. Come on. Come on. All right. Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
He
I
got
got a
more.
plan to fix the voting system, and I know Hotep is better with all the tech shit than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, my thing is a real-time database.
Okay.
Because one of our biggest problems, you've been in the military, you know, our government agencies don't talk to each other.
That's the biggest pet peeve.
Yeah, they don't talk to each other. That's how 9/11 happened, is a lack of
They
interagency.
still don't talk to each other. They still don't do it.
So, and that was my thing is, if our agencies talk to each other, we would be able to know when people die, and they could
Yes.
immediately, in real time, be expunged from voter rolls. We'd know when people are incarcerated and they are no longer eligible to vote, when they're convicted of a crime and they're no longer eligible to vote.
Correct.
We'd also know when they've served their time and they're released back into population and they should be able to vote.
Correct.
And we'd also be able to, if our agencies spoke to each other, we'd also be able to know when people are registered to vote in multiple states. So I say a real-time database working off of aggregating all the state and federal agencies' information so that you can ping people who are registered in multiple states when they die, when they become citizens and are eligible to vote, when they are no longer eligible to vote. And that goes the same for firearm ownership, like the shooting in Texas. The guy shouldn't have even been able to have firearms, but the lapse between the military agencies and the federal agencies, he was able to keep his firearms and able to carry out a shooting.
It's a lot, and that was part of, you know, I am going to run again and start bringing up those issues. You know, our agencies, even in the military, the Army and the Navy, none of us talk to each other.
Oh,
we
no.
we didn't. It was like, oh, let me go. No, we don't talk. We don't talk. And you're wondering
We're working
why?
against each other.
Huh?
We're working against each other in a lot of cases because we're all working the same case from different angles, stepping on each
Like
other's toes.
Like the FBI doesn't talk to the marshals. I have a marshal friend. He said, I'm sick of trying to talk to the FBI. They don't want to talk to me because they're trying to bring somebody back, or you know, and it gets to it. I really hope, you know, we get better leadership representation, and we have to really push it. We have to really start saying this is what we need. If you don't like what's going on, you have to really start asking and start going to your local level. So you have to. You yes, local is very important because, as Sunny said, Sunny Johnson, when I was listening to her podcast a while back, She said the government closest to you controls you. And I
Yeah,
said that is she should write a book. I said this is a perfect book and it needs to be in every single school.
she
And I
needs to
hope she's
start back up her podcast. I'm going to keep
yes.
pressing her on that because
And
her
I
podcast
said
is gold.
and write a book and to me and I shared her podcast. It's still pinned on her tweet. I share it with other people, even the red
Hmm.
pill people, and they were like, wow. I said this is the best way I can explain it to you because I'm busy right now. Listen to Sunny and she'll break
Yeah.
it down to you. And they
Yep.
come back and say, wow, I like this lady. Oh wow, I didn't know this. And I'm like, been trying to tell you that. But I think by doing these things and how we're doing it, you're going to post it and really start pushing it out there. I know I have one Twitter person, Huey Newton or something, and we will go on debate. Yeah, Huey
I had
Newton.
I had to block him. I
Oh
had to
wow,
block him, and it
I
was
haven't gotten
only
that.
because I refused to defend Donald Trump. I refused to do it. I had to block a bunch of MAGA people too, because I refused
Okay.
to defend Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a grown ass man; he can defend himself.
Yes.
And I refuse to defend the Republican Party. I won't debate Republican versus Democrat to people because I see that is if you're repping party, that is political gangbanging. I don't want to. I don't want to be friggin'. I'm not throwing up blood on your page, and I don't want you crip walking all over my page. So, I see that as a argument in futility. So
Well, people
I
need
stick
to start.
to let's just talk about solutions and
Yeah.
principles. And when we talk about solutions, I find the majority of people largely agree on solutions, on what
Yes.
can actually work, and on principles, but we disagree on organizations. So I
Correct.
say if we stick to individuals and principles, I can get a Democrat's vote as an individual. I
Yes.
cannot go and say, and which is where I see. I like Kimberly Klasick. I met her in person
She seemed
at the
nice.
Solutionary Summit. Yeah, she seemed nice. And I met Angie at the Solutionary Summit as well, and she seemed nice. And I think their biggest failure was they ran on Donald Trump. They ran on his platform, on his accomplishments, and that made them also able to catch all the flack that he got and
Correct.
not able to distinguish themselves as individuals. And they both had fantastic ideas for their community.
Correct.
So I'm like, man, y'all had great ideas, but you ran as a vestige of Trump, not Angie and Kimberly. Angie and Kimberly could have got votes. You, as a vestige of Donald Trump, you lost before you even started
Right.
because now you're working against the 4 years of media propaganda against Donald Trump. Or when I look at my voting plan, my voting plan was based off of I have yet to find anyone that largely disagrees with its ability to work. A real-time voting system that purges and adds people to the voting system, thumbprint verification, not
Yeah,
signature verification.
biometrics.
Yeah,
Biometrics. We use it in
your
the
thumb,
government.
exactly. Your thumbprint's unique to you, and the mail-in,
Biometrics.
yeah, and so you would use a voting machine. It has to be domestically produced. When the system is aggregating real-time counts and stuff as you're voting, so you're voting at your state, and it prints out 3 copies of your ballot that you check against the screen. You put your thumbprint on the screen to verify your vote on the screen, and your ballots match. That goes to the real-time voting system. So if somebody tries to use your same information, it pings them automatically.
I like that.
So it pings them automatically, and those 3 ballots that come out, one is your receipt, one goes to the federal government, and one goes to your state government. The federal government's one only gets used in the case of a challenged audit. The
Okay.
state one, the state paper ballot, gets used as an automatic audit against your vote, your real-time vote. And your receipt is a last-ditch effort where you can track and be like, all right, look, I have my thumbprint on all three of these, verifying all three of these, and my real-time vote that got verified by my thumbprint. So there you have 4 times you check the exact same information, which makes it damn near impossible to cheat. And on top of that, there's a barcode at the bottom of each sheet and your real-time vote.
Okay.
And it works the same for mail-in voting as well.
I like that.
You have to request the ballot. You have to sign with your thumb. It works the same way as Pennsylvania's naked ballots. And if any changes at all are made to the system, it has to go through the legislature. Anyone that engages in fraud in any way, shape, or form, minimum 10 years sentence in prison, and between $10,000 to $100,000 fine, depending upon the state legislature.
I like that.
My whole thing is so many damn checks and balances against anybody being able to steal a vote, manipulate a vote, the system having an error. If the system shuts down, you have 3 copies of the same ballot. And it all real-time tracking. You should be able to look up your vote and verify that your vote was casted properly. And the government wouldn't track who you voted for. The federal government wouldn't track and aggregate who you voted for. They would only check to make sure that the vote was verified.
You need to really, I know you have it written down and everything else, but I like that and like to talk to you offline about that even more. And I think that's something that's you need to really start pushing, because this day and age with signatures, anybody can copy a signature. I mean, to a point. I mean, spouses know how their other spouse writes, and your kids, and back in the day, forging your parents' signature. But the biometrics, you're absolutely right, because I used to reset the cat card PIN numbers when I worked in IT. If that was the only thing, if you're not coming up, you can't.
That's the part I forgot. That's the part I forgot. Everybody would get a cat card style voting ID upon their 18th birthday. When you're eligible to vote and you get that your certified adult ID, you get one with a chip and it has your biometrics loaded on it. So you just scan it in the machine, then you put your thumbprint on it, and it would last for over 10 years.
I like that a lot.
Expire for 10 years, so you have it for 2.5 full election cycles.
I like that. We'll talk more offline.
Initially I would do a mat. Unfortunately, it would take the military to mass distribute that shit. But yeah, like
the COVID vaccines.
Oh God. Well, I keep saying.
I know. I know.
Somebody actually told me, like, you can't deploy troops on domestic soil, and I'm like, we deploy the National Guard on a regular basis for disaster relief. I'm like, and the National Guard falls under state control anytime they're not called up by the federal government. And they work in tandem with the federal government on a regular basis. So spare me the neophyte logic for a minute. I'm like,
exactly.
Actually distribute this shit pretty freaking easy. And every military base has a mobile command center.
Yes.
Like we can send IT pros and we can send intel officers, because every unit's got an intel officer. So like we can easily send this stuff and distribute it. But I'll let you get to dinner.
No, that's okay. I want to come back on.
Oh, most definitely. I'm planning. Wayne Dupree just hit me back up to do an interview.
I like Wayne. I've been on his show. I like Wayne.
I like him too.
Wayne's been in the fight for a long time too. Wayne's Air Force.
Yeah, he is. My parents are Air Force, so
okay.
Well, we talk shit to each other over the fact I joined the Marine Corps. They say if I had a brain, I would have joined the Marines, and I keep saying my balls were too big. They told me to go to the Air Force, wouldn't take me. I love it. I love it.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I hope to have you and Miss Harriet, Miss Pinky on, and we can we can get,
Yes.
dig a little bit deeper, especially into um, feminism, a little bit of Black history, throw some solutions out there, and where we can pivot this movement going forward.
And we'll block out more time and get everybody, because I think it'll be a good 3 to 4 hour conversation
Yeah.
or 5 hours.
I mean, we could even do it in two parts if necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, because you guys got a lot of knowledge. Between the four of us, we can really throw some knowledge out there. I actually want to
All right.
do a little bit more of a knowledge series coming up soon, unapologetically Black, where we go through Black history, and I
I
want to
like
have
that.
people on, and we can really get into not just conservative Black history, but Black history overall, and
Perfect.
get to the truth of some things.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Because we got to do it.
I will be running alongside you in this next race. I'm working on my
Thank you.
campaign page right now.
Let me
So
know. Let me know if you need fundraising help. Let me know. I raised over 500,000, so let me know because I started late. But I'm starting to raise next week. Next week we're gonna start raising money because I need more than what I had. Even though I raised about 700,000, but I need millions. You need a lot, so let me
yeah,
know. Let me know.
yeah,
I got a good fundraising.
I'll be dropping my campaign page as soon as I finish it, and I got to file my FEC paperwork, and I'm gonna hit the ground running. I was planning on waiting until after the inauguration, but losing a month in this fight,
You
it
got to
could be
do it
the
right now.
difference between winning and losing.
My consultant called me. He's like, we're 2 weeks behind. And I'm like, okay, I had to sign the contract and they go
Yeah,
ahead. Yeah, because everything has to be legal and how much percentage they're going to take. But I'm 2 weeks behind fundraising. You got to do it now.
yeah, yeah. George Farrell told me I need to get everything going
I know
right now, and I
George.
need to file. Yeah, he's great.
I
Uh,
know George.
I,
He's awesome.
I, I hope you're going to be at the Frederick Douglass breakfast in Florida coming up in, I think it's February.
What day? Send me the info.
Uh,
Send me the
yeah,
info.
I think it's the 25th. I'll send it to you.
Let me know because we have our GOP convention and I am a delegate. So I know it's going to be virtual. So I have to see how those dates come out. But yeah, send me the info because I want to come. I want to come.
Definitely. And I hope I'll see you at CPAC too.
Oh, yes. And I mean, everything is all at once, but our GOP state convention is going to be virtual. So it shouldn't
Okay.
be a conflict. So I do plan on coming to CPAC. CPAC is going to be in Florida. First time
Yeah.
ever. So I will be at CPAC finally.
Yeah, they're going to be going hard for Florida this year. I
Yes.
honestly think it would have been better to do it in Georgia.
You think so?
I think it would have been strategically better with as good as we did in Florida this year. I think it would have been strategically better to do bigger events in Florida, but to do the convention in Georgia, specifically in Atlanta. I think having a lot like all the Black PAC candidates in one place, walking around talking to people, a whole
I get
bunch
you.
of Black
I
conservative
yeah,
candidates talking to
yeah.
which is pretty much Black Wall
Right.
Street at this point.
Yes.
Yeah,
I see where you're going.
yeah. I think us interacting with the people in Atlanta would make a huge, huge impact.
It
But
would have.
I can't wait. Thank you for coming on. I'll let you get
Thank
to
you.
dinner. My wife told me my daughters are waiting for me, so
There you go.
you
Everybody's hungry.
yeah, you have a
All right.
beautiful,
I'll
you
see
have a
you.
great night.
Send me the link and stuff, and then I'll see you on Twitter tonight. I really appreciate it.
Will do. I loved having you on. Stay
Have me
safe.
back on. You too.
All right, people. I know it was a very, very long episode tonight, but it was well worth it. I'm glad you all came on tonight. Anyone that watched, remember to subscribe, like, and share. Share it multiple times. Share it on all your platforms. I know a bunch of y'all are on Parler now. Have a good night, and God bless.
And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. If he's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous water. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door,
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.
I keep forget when I